Okay. All right, it is a little past 6:30. My name is Tom McKay. I'm the Vice Chair of the Board. This is the Hainesport Township Joint Land Use Board meeting for August 7, 2024. Our Chairman, Harold Crowpfeiffer, could not be here today, so I will be running the meeting in his place. First, we'll have a call to order, which I have just done. Second, we will have a flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, can I have a recitation of the Sunshine Law compliance?
Notice of this meeting was published in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act.
All right. We have a rule here, we've had for many, many years, we'll have no new business after 10:30 PM. That is, we'll start no matter after 10:30 PM, but if a matter has started before that hour, we will try to conclude it tonight. All right, I'll need a roll call, please.
Mrs. Torti?
Here.
Mr. Bradley?
Here.
Mrs. Kelly?
Here.
Mayor Gilmore?
Here.
Mr. Chakotay?
Here.
Mrs. Baggio?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Cosco?
Here.
Mr. Novarita?
Here.
Mr. Holden? Absent. Mr. Crowpfeiffer? Absent. And Mr. McKay?
Here. We're going to take items for business slightly out of order. I'm going to take C first, which is just an announcement. This is case 23-06A, JDEB Marne Highway LLC. If anybody is here for that, counsel for the applicant, Vincent D'Elia, Esquire, has sent a letter to the board asking that the matter be carried and relisted to September 4th, quote, if not October 2nd, close quote.
Yeah, we'll make a determination when we have our pre-agenda meeting, because I'm not sure we can get him on in September, and he has already agreed in his letter to re-advertise.
Right, he has, I was going to say that, he's going to re-advertise if we go out that far.
Yes,
So you would prefer not to set the date today,
correct.
but just postpone it?
Yes.
Okay. Can we have a vote on that adjournment?
We need a motion to continue it to an indefinite date for which there will be renotice.
All right, can I have a motion?
So move.
Thank you. Second? Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mrs. Torti?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Chakotay?
Yes.
Mrs. Baggio?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Cosco?
Yes.
And Mr. McKay?
Yes. All right, getting back to the items for business. The first item, case 24-11, Alicia Glover, regarding 74 Easton Way, bulk variance for an addition. Would you please come forward and be sworn, ma'am?
Good evening.
Good evening, how are
Raise your
you?
right hand, please, I'll swear you in. You swear or affirm the testimony you give tonight to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
All right, now, you were on before, but we had to adjourn this because of a publication issue, I guess. So, we looked at the material, and this is for an addition to your house for a relative to move in with you. Is that my understanding?
Who will be my mom.
Your mother, okay. All right, why don't you explain to us what you want to get? We have your application in front of us, and we can follow along.
Great, thank you. One, thank you for your time. I won't belabor it. I know that your time is valuable. I just have 4 small points. Just to give you a little bit of background, lost my father December 2022. At that point, my mom's cognitive disabilities became apparent. He took care of all of her household maintenance, bills, everything. I've become my mom's power of attorney at that point, just handling everything that she can't handle. My mom also has physical disabilities, and therefore the home that she currently lives in Mount Holly, she can't navigate. Not only can she not navigate the stairs, but she does forget, and it's not safe for her anymore.
All right.
So, we did make the decision for mom to move in with me, and at that point, come up with the proposal to add on to our home so that she can be comfortable.
All right, let me stop you here and swear you in, please. Raise your hand. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. She's the applicant. She was sworn in?
Yeah.
God.
I'm double sworn in.
Double sworn in. Really, double sworn in. You're
problem.
fine. It's my fault. I'm trying to read stuff and listen to you at the same time.
Totally understand.
So
just a-
go ahead. So
Sure.
you have this, you have this health issue that you have to deal with.
Yeah. And so therefore, moving in with me would be the best option. She's alone in the home. The home is too much for her to navigate. Basically, I think that it was important, personally, for her home, her room that she's currently in to be kind of equal to the proposed home. I'm wanting her to have her items that she's familiar with, and just, thinking in the future, the room large enough to be able to manipulate and maneuver a wheelchair, a hospital bed, or any adaptive equipment that she might need in the future. That's the whole thought in planning the size of the room. My third point, which is important, it is important that my neighbors be supportive and understanding of the proposed plan. So I did talk with my neighbors just so that they can get an understanding of what the plan was and the rationale. My immediate neighbors, Tom and Lori Solecki, who cannot be here tonight, for whatever it's worth, they are in support of this plan. I think it's also important for the construction to be seamless and not be an eyesore in the community, so I did reach out to and include Michael Paparone, who is the builder who initially built the home. And then my final point is that, the whole basis for being here is that my proposal, does go into the setback. But just a point to remember is that although it says 4 feet, it's 4 feet, it's shaped like a pizza slice. I must be hungry, I'm talking about pizza. It's shaped like a triangle, so it does go from 4 feet down to probably a couple of inches. So it is my hope and that you would understand my plea and take that into consideration.
Okay, and we have the architect's drawings. Tell you what you have them in large fashion. Large.
Good evening, folks. Kathy Newcomb, Hainsport Township Zoning Officer. So the reason here is that they will start off the fact that it's a bulk variance because a 15-foot side yard setback is required where she is at 10.3. So if you take a look at the plans, and I researched them before I even did the denial, was to make sure that this was not able to become an apartment. If you take a look, I had to have the architect redo a couple things on the inside. So there is no outside entrance, there's no separate utilities. Everything is strictly through the main house. And it truly is just a bedroom. There's no kitchen, there's no anything else.
Right.
So with that said, one of the things that I received just recently was the fact that I was concerned about where the drainage would be going on this house because of the fact that it is she doesn't have a neighbor to the left, but she does have a neighbor to the right. So unfortunately, I don't have a ton of these plans, I only have 1 or 2, but it does show on these plans where the drainage will be going to, which I took a look at pretty well detailed as to where they are going. You're more than welcome that I can pass around if you like. They are on A1 and A2, and then you can take a quick look at these. I'll give out both of them. And if you have any questions, we can try and establish if there's any other concerns.
Ms. Newcomb, is that plan that you have in front of you your copy, or can that be used as an exhibit copy?
No, we can give that. Ms. Glover also has one too, so you're more than welcome to have these.
All right, well, we just need one copy. We can take we can take yours if that works,
Yeah, that's fine.
and mark that as Exhibit A.
Yes.
Designate that as Exhibit A, and that consists of the architect's drawings.
Right, if you take a look at A2 and A3, the architect clouded the area of where the drainage would be going so that it would not affect the homeowner to the right. That was a concern of mine a little while ago, and the architect was kind enough to give us quickly some information on that.
Right. Marty, have you looked at this at all?
No, I haven't made him do that because usually for homeowners, that's not a requirement.
Right, and just on the point of the drainage. You're fine with the drainage, though?
Thank you.
Kathy?
Yes, I'm comfortable in taking a look at this. I feel that he has done a fairly good job in resolving the issue. Again, she's on a corner property, so she has no view to the left of her at all.
Right.
Her lot is more than big enough. It does drain back down to the wetland buffers that are behind his house. So where it goes to, I feel is a good place.
Did you say that, did I hear you correctly, that the Paparone built the original house and they're going to do the addition as well? Or-
Yes.
They are. All right. All right, Ms. Glover, do you have anything else that you want to add to your application that you haven't said already? All right.
Do you have questions for me, Mr.?
No, I think, you covered the 2 points, the access to the exterior and the drainage issue.
Right, I had talked to the architect extensively in regards to this. And it's a 353 square foot bedroom. And again, it's not like some of the other ones where we had the situation where they had doors in the back and we mandated that they had sliders versus a man door. This does not have that on, there's no doors on this addition.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
Anything else, please feel free to.
No, that's all. Thank you very much. Members of the board, questions? Yeah. Any? Professionals, any questions on this?
No, sir.
None at all? Okay, I'll open this up to the public. Any public comment on this specific application? Anything online? No.
Here.
Okay, hearing nothing from either the online or the in-person, we'll close the public meeting. There are no questions on the application. Can I have a motion to grant the variance requested?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Chordy?
Yes.
Mrs. Baggio?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes.
Mr. Chakotay?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Musto?
Yes.
And Mr. McKay?
Yes. All right, you're approved.
She has decided not to move forward with the waiver to proceed, so I just want to let you know that.
All right, so you understand that'd be about 30 days before the resolution is issued and signed, and it'll be delivered, sent to you, and then you can proceed with application for permit and construction.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you so much.
All right. Next, we have B item on our list, case 19-09D, R&M Development, 60 Bancroft Lane, revised subdivision. David Frank, nice to see you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members
You
of the
need a
board.
minute to set up?
Yeah, well, we can start to palaver while they get their work done.
Okay, who are your witnesses tonight?
Mr. Chairman, this evening we'll be having Jack Gravelin, professional engineer, testifying. Mr.
Right.
Gravelin will testify to the particularities of the improvements that we've made on the site. We'll also have James Mellett. He is also a professional engineer, and Mr. Mellett was most closely involved in the NJDEP permitting process for the proposed pipe and outfall structure, which is proposed as a part of this. So, if I may, just sort of set the stage.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to give us an
Sure.
opening statement.
Okay, so my name is David Frank. I'm an attorney at law admitted to practice in the state of New Jersey. Here tonight on behalf of R&M Development. We're here seeking an amended final major site plan approval And the purpose of the amendment is to implement a settlement agreement that was reached in some litigation that was filed under docket number BURL 192721. And the settlement was between Creekview and Lakeside and Creekview Community Association as the plaintiff, and Hainesport Township, this board, my client, and, the Diamantis Children's Trust. So those were the parties to the settlement. And the most important piece of the puzzle with regard to the settlement is that the original approval of this board contemplated that stormwater would flow from a basin on this new subdivision. Let me back up, it's a 41-home senior citizen development, age restricted. That stormwater would flow from the basin on this property through what was believed to be, and may very well be, a stormwater easement into the Creekview at Lakeside development. And so the right of this property to cause that flow into Creekview was challenged, and the settlement that was reached between all the parties was that instead of stormwater being directed there, it would either be wholly infiltrated on site, on the subject property, or, and/or it would be taken off the site via an easement on adjoining township-owned lands. So specifically, that's lots 9 and 10 of Block 100. And just to sort of read into the record the language of the settlement, other than the issues related to the discharge of stormwater into plaintiff's property, all of the approvals and waivers granted by the Joint Land Use Board to the applicants in the resolution, and they're referencing there the resolution of final major subdivision approval from this board, remain in full force and effect, subject to any conditions contained therein. The applicants agree to re-engineer the stormwater discharge plans to address a storm event exceeding the 100-year storm via an easement to be negotiated between the applicants and the township, and/or to be retained on the applicant's property, subject to the review of all designs and engineering by the township and Joint Land Use Board professionals, and subject to any generally applicable bonding and maintenance obligations.
All right, you're reading from paragraph 3 and 4 of this,
Yes, I am,
of
on
the
page
agreement.
3. Yes, thank you. And then
Would you think it advisable to mark that stipulation of settlement and dismissal as an exhibit here, so that we have it?
we can certainly do that. It was attached to the transmittal letter that was sent to the board as the first exhibit, Exhibit A to that letter. So I don't know what your practice is, whether that would be marked separately or whether because it's in the record of the filing.
As part of the application?
Yeah,
It's part of the application, then it's already in?
Yes.
All right, that's fine.
And then it says in paragraph 5, applicants shall appear before the Joint Land Use Board to obtain amended site plan and appurtenant approvals as it relates to the stormwater discharge arising from weather event exceeding the 100-year storm, subject to this order via hearing pursuant to the Whispering Woods v. Middletown Township.
And so that brings you here.
That brings us here. And so what we've done is very specifically re-engineer the stormwater management of the site to address the stipulation of settlement. And in that vein, I'm going to call,
In a nutshell,
yes,
you mentioned 2 methods of discharge from the,
Yes.
from the site, actually one not from the site, one captured on site and the other sent to the easement from the town. Have you decided engineering-wise which you're going to pursue?
yes. And Mr. Gravlin, I think, can confirm this, but our engineers, plural, did very extensive analysis of how to manage the stormwater on the site, what the flows will be, what the capacity of the soils are, what there will be for groundwater mounding in the event of different infiltration. And in every scenario, it is always going to be necessary to have somewhere for the water to go in the time of an excessive storm, beyond the 100-year storm, for which we're obliged to design here. So no matter what the design chosen is, or the amount of infiltration, whether we chose to infiltrate the 100-year storm on site, as was an option under the settlement, or to pipe away, we would always have to have a pipe somewhere. It's simply not good design practice, and I'm sure Mr. Gravel will confirm that when he comes up, not to have somewhere for it.
So to simplify, you're going to use both methods.
I don't think that's an accurate statement. There will be on-site infiltration. We're required to have on-site infiltration.
Right.
The regulations, but we're going to be using the outfall pipe in the remote circumstance of an extremely heavy storm. So, and we can talk about that, but in
All right,
terms
well, I'll have Mr. Gravel can
yeah,
explain
but-
that.
But in terms of the settlement, right, we're taking on one of the options in that settlement agreement, which it turns out is really the only feasible engineering option. So lawyers can write stuff on paper, but when you have to deal with real water and real dirt, then the engineers step in and they tell us how it really works.
All right,
That's
you
what
want
happened
to,
here.
you want to swear both of your engineers?
I do, and before I do that, though, I want to start out the conversation with, we have received the reports of your engineer and your planner, both dated August 6th. We've reviewed them together carefully, and we are able to comply with all of the plan detail and design comments set forth in those letters. The only, it's not even an exception, the only thing that we would say is that there is a suggestion in your engineer's letter that we think about the possibility of some consolidations of dry wells that we're going to be installing to serve, to take up the roof drainage from homes. And we're actually not able to do that under DEP's green infrastructure requirements. We have to be distributed around the site. That's the only thing that we would say that we can't fully comply with, and it'll come up as we talk, but your planner suggested that rather than a straight line for our pipe and easement through the township-owned properties, that we put a curve in it, and we're absolutely amenable to doing that. And it will probably become something that we would work through with the township to do anyway, so.
So explain to us what the curve accomplishes.
So Mr. Chairman, if I may, it was sort of a two-part comment. The first intent of that was, and I think it was in an earlier report, a straight line of vegetation removal. If there are curves in the pipe, it will give us an opportunity to perhaps route this around any major specimens that may be identified. The second thing was, from a visual standpoint, instead of having that cleared easement area be a straight line, if that does curve, it will reduce the visual impacts of that clearing, and if we can reduce the specimen tree clearing, that will also have some environmental benefit. Thirdly, as the town knows, this parcel, lots 9 and 10, is contemplated for the construction of what will likely be known as Creek Turn Park. Part of the board's initial approval, as you know, on lot 18, the applicant is being required to construct a pedestrian connection from this development to the Creek Turn Park property. That lot 18 at the location at the interface between the two lots is coincident with where the storm pipe is. We anticipate, as that park design evolves, the part of this easement clearing will be utilized for the construction of the walkway system within the park. Instead of having that as a straight line, which is really not an attractive or a natural feature, having this as a curved element will facilitate the park development of the walkway, potentially reduce the visual impacts, and hopefully reduce or maybe avoid some specimen tree removal. I apologize for the long-winded,
Yeah.
but you all know how I am.
So to follow up on Mr. Taylor's comments, we're certainly amenable to working with Mr. Taylor and his office to assure that we avoid any significant specimen trees to the greatest possible extent, and also to make the easement integrate well with the planned trails and parks. The peculiarity of this situation is that the township will control the easement, right? We're here for site plan review as it pertains to compliance with the township's stormwater management ordinance and how that applies to the stipulation of settlement. The township governing body is going to have a great deal of control over what my client is able to do within that easement and where that easement ultimately ends up being routed. And so my thought would be that any approval that this board gives here would be for the engineering design as opposed to the specific route through the township's property. And that then would be the subject of further conversations with Mr. Taylor and the township solicitor as we work through the actual grant of the easement by the township, which remains within the township governing body's discretion. So what we're doing here is a piece of the puzzle, but that ultimate piece of the puzzle, I think, gets resolved at the governing body and not here.
Mr. Kingsbury, are you in agreement or not with that
Yes,
statement?
I agree with that. It's a township issue whether or not the easement is granted or denied. It's not a land use board issue.
Right.
And then the specific terms of the design and how we do it also then falls with the township.
Right.
This board cannot decide to grant the easement or not grant the easement.
Right.
That's outside your jurisdiction.
All right, when your engineer is going to cover what he can cover on the easement, just for information purposes.
Sure, absolutely. And so we're going to put on Mr. Gravelin, who's going to speak to you about the changes that we've made on the site and the specifics of the pipe and that. And then we're going to have Mr. Mellett talk with you about the NJDEP permitting process, some of the analysis that was done in support of that, and some of the other aspects of that.
Right.
So first,
Is it Melton? Spell that last name for me.
MELLETTQT. Yes,
M-E-
James Mellett. So
Mel.
Jack, do you want to come on up?
All right, Mr. Gravelin, you can be sworn again today. We have your credentials. We're familiar with you. And
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give tonight will be the truth and the truth, nothing but truth, nothing but truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, and you're admitted to testify as an expert in this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jack Gravel. I'm a civil engineer. I have a long history with this property since the original development of the diner. The revisions we are asking for tonight, there are actually 7. My plan, this is sheet 2 of the final development plans, identical to what is in your packet, and it indicates the overall development in the area, and it also indicates the township lands to the northeast. We were approved for a 41 residential, 1 homeowners / open space lot, as well as 2 park access lots. Our request is identical. We have not changed this plan at all, with the exception of indicating an easement out to the Rancocas, and I will get to that in a minute. One of the parcels that will go to the township is the access back from Bancroft that actually originates off of our access into our development. So there'll be 1 parcel here. We will be building the main road itself. There is also a smaller parcel located here, lot 18 indicated on my plan. It is a narrow pedestrian lot. It will have a fence on either side. It will have a concrete sidewalk going up. It will also contain the water and sewer, which we will install and tap at the property line, which will be for the township to extend their utilities to that point. So that has not changed at all. What has changed is, number 1, the basin outflow pipe discharge location. Previously, it was proposed to come from the back of the basin through a drainage easement and into the municipal street down below. That is what the court agreement apparently said we are not able to do. As a result, that has been removed. So that's number one. Number two, the stormwater basin itself, which is in this corner, has been revised slightly and shifted. If you look at the before plan and the after plan, you really can't tell a difference. I actually picked the contours up and moved them slightly, only to provide some additional room at the back of the property. Number three, a revised basin outfall pipe has been added. The pipe will be installed from the side of the basin behind lots 13 through 18 out to the township line, property line, and through an easement, ultimately discharging into the Rancocas Creek.
Is it, Mr. Crowell, is it easier to use the other diagram that you have?
Sure.
To locate this new, first of all, start from scratch. Show us about where the old outfall was.
If I could, that is pre-marked as Exhibit Number 2, and it was prepared by Churchill Engineering.
Okay, that's wonderful.
With today's date.
So on exhibit number 2, show us the approximate location of the old outfall that's not being constructed.
The original outfall that I designed went in between these two lots through an existing drainage easement and into working place. That pipe has been eliminated as a result of the court ruling. The new outfall structure from the basin will be on the side at this area, and the underground pipe will extend behind the proposed lots through a drainage easement. We will create a drainage easement on each of these lots for that pipe. And this intersects at the proposed 15-foot wide township lot that is intended for pedestrian access as well as utilities.
That's the lot that you just,
Property.
that's the lot that you previously indicated to us.
That is correct.
Okay.
Once we reach this point, we are proposing the pipe to extend out to the Rancocas Creek. That necessitated a very detailed waterfront development permit through NJDEP. We were fortunate, we were able to get Mr. Bellet and Churchill Associates to assist me on that. It was a permit process that I was not really comfortable doing without their input. As it turned out, it was a very good decision to bring them in.
Has the permit been obtained?
Yes. Permit has been obtained. We didn't want to come back in until we were 100% certain we would get the permit. It has been issued, and it was included as part of the application packet. Number 4, a storm sewer easement has been added to block 100.02 lots 13 and 18 for maintenance of the pipe. That is at the rear of these lots, as I previously indicated. Part of the original approval required a tree protection area on this side as well as this side.
That's that shaded area?
That is correct. It's shaded in green. That has not been touched. We located all those trees. We went through all that during the original approval process. No changes at all to that. Number 5, as part of the DEP permitting, they required us to install dry wells for the roof drainage that'll be sized for the water quality storm. What that is, because it is roof drainage, it is basically considered clean. So it can go directly into a dry well and be infiltrated into the ground. So we, of course, agreed to do that. And on my revised grading plan, which is part of the application documents, I indicate the location of all those dry wells. I am proposing one dry well per 2 houses. All of them are located within the swales in between the properties towards the front of the property. Because it is only sized for a water quality storm event, there is the potential it will come up, flow out, and it will go directly into the street, which ultimately ends up within the stormwater collection system and then the proposed basin at the back of the site. So actually, it's an extra factor of safety. We did not even consider that in our calculations. We have it based on all the water running from the roofs, going out to the street and in the basin. DEP wanted us to add that as a best management practice, and of course we did.
Let me just interrupt you. These shared dry wells, shared by 2 houses, do they require periodic maintenance?
Absolutely. They will be maintained by the homeowners association, and there will be appropriate easements around them so that the homeowners association has the right to get in there, do whatever work that is required. Periodically, they will need to be inspected and maintained. They are included in our stormwater management maintenance schedules, and it will be inspected and, where appropriate, repaired, maintained.
Just give us a short explanation of what a dry well is when used in this way.
It is basically a French drain system. However, it's an open tank. It's a seepage tank that will have stone on the bottom, perforations on the side. As the water comes in, it will infiltrate into the ground. At the top will be a grate where the water will be able to relieve, if necessary, flow out and into the streets.
Okay.
Can you tell me the approximate size of the dry wells?
Well, they will probably be 8-foot diameter, I'm expecting. I have to actually size these things based upon the roof drainage size. I'm expecting about an 8-foot diameter tank. You won't ever see it, it'll be buried, of course, but there will be access at the top of it, both for the relief, as I had indicated, as well as to be able to get in there and potentially clean it out.
Okay, thank you.
These tanks are, they're plastic, of some sort of plastic.
They may be plastic, they may be concrete. In this day and age, you could probably go with a high-density polyethylene that'll work just as well. But I have not actually specified what the tank material will be at this point.
All right. So you're working on the next item?
Okay. Next item is number 6. The erosion control plan has been revised to include silt fencing and riprap for the outlet structure at the Rancocas Creek. One of the plans in my plan set is an off-site sewer plan that indicates how the outlet structure at the creek will be constructed, what the erosion control, what the required stabilization is in that area, so that the water that does leave the pipe and enters into the Rancocas, the entire area will be stabilized. Now, that was all reviewed as part of the DEP waterfront development permit.
So does the permit include drawings depicting the manner in which the outfall pipe is to be designed?
Yes, the approval was all based upon engineering drawings that I prepared and I signed and sealed.
And this will be structure constructed on township property, park property pursuant to the easement?
That is correct. A portion of the pipe will be constructed within an easement on the township property. The actual outfall structure is along the creek line in the proximity of the open water, which will also be constructed on the township property.
Okay.
Last revision were minor technical revisions have been made in support of another DEP treatment works approval permit for the sewer and a BWSE permit for the water main extension. They were technical changes. They are contained on sheets 5 and 12. They are required in order for us to get those 2 additional DEP permits.
And these are the extensions that are going to be capped for the moment that flow into township property for subsequent use?
They will be included in those permits, but both permits are required to allow us to extend the public sewer throughout our property, connecting to the Hainesport Township system, and for New Jersey American Water to extend a water main around our property. From those mains, we will run connections off the mains to the rear of our property where it intersects with the township property for your use. They will be lateral connections, service connections, not full-size mains. They are not required.
Are they going in the same location as the outfall pipe?
They'll be in proximity. The actual utility services will be coming up the east or the 15-foot wide pedestrian lot. At the end of that, there will be a manhole for the new store pipe. There will be 2 connection points alongside for the water and sewer that will serve the property or the park property in the back.
Okay. Is there anything else? You've covered your 7 items.
That is the extent of the revisions to the plan, and as you can see, the vast majority result from the modifications to the basin and the outlet piping system. Now, it has always been my opinion that proper civil engineering dictated that a controlled overflow system from the basin needed to be installed. And we have been able to accomplish this. At no point would I ever sign and seal a drawing without that pipe on it. It just isn't sound civil engineering practice. And as I indicated, it did require a waterfront development permit, which has been obtained. We brought in Jim Mellett from Churchill to assist in that permitting. He can add some additional insight into that process.
Mr. Frank, any other points before I ask the board if they have questions?
I just want to point out that in Mr. Miller's letter, your engineer's letter, there is a request for some further details concerning the size and specifications and calculations that drive the sizes of the dry well. So your engineer has picked that up as something that he would like to see additional detail on. That's part of what we're agreeing to provide to the board, to Mr. Miller for his review.
Right. You previously agreed to compliance with his comments.
That's right. Just wanted, because it was something you asked about, I want to make sure you understood that that is something that we are going to provide.
Stay there, Mr. Any questions from the professionals on these points before I ask the board if they have questions?
Well, I can tell the board that I had an extensive conversation with Mr. Gravelin about the outfall, and in particular having to do with the permitting with the DEP, and I was satisfied with that. I looked at the manual for the inspection of the dry wells, and what happens is that they have to complete this manual, and when they complete the manual and start it into operation, they will give it to the township,
and then gets part of their stormwater management, that they have the detail to begin with, and they have the first step.
Scott, anything?
Two things, just very briefly. Jack, I believe that in part of your earlier testimony, you had said that Lot 18 was going to be a township lot.
Yes.
I believe that Lot 18 is actually going to be retained by the HOA, and maintained by the HOA with blanket easements, but I think just rely on the prior approvals, and I don't.
Yeah, we had discussed that both ways. However the board would like it, we can certainly do it that way. But we did create an individual lot for either way. Now, I believe the access road, you want us to dedicate that,
Correct.
that parcel.
Correct.
But if,
Yeah, that will be dedicated and then maintained by the municipality. But the notes that I have on sheet 3 are that Lot 18 will be part of the open space to be maintained by the HOA.
if it's on my plan,
So I just wanted to, because I think, and it's been a couple of years.
yes, it's,
The two other things, the maintenance of the new stormwater pipe across lots 8 and 9, the responsibility for the maintenance of that pipe will remain with the HOA?
Yes, it will be the HOA's responsibility.
Okay. And maintenance of the flared end or head wall?
Yeah, the
entirety?
The
of that?
entirety, yes, and that's very much going to be the subject of what we work through with the governing body and the township solicitor, the specific language of the easement, as well as how we secure the responsibility of the HOA to actually perform on its obligations under the easement agreement.
Because I know sort of part of that process was the HOA docs being submitted to the board professionals. That's going to end up having to go to the township professionals as well.
Yeah.
So that everything
But-
can get wrapped up.
The HOA documents are going to need to reflect that that there exists this easement and that the HOA needs to be respectful of its constraints. But I don't think that necessarily the case that the HOA documents are going to drive the agreement and obligation with the town. That's going to be dealt with through the easement document, I expect. So the HOA docs, yeah, we'll get them to you there, and the town's professionals will also certainly have their hand in that, no doubt about it.
And I guess the last question I'd have, Mr. Outland, and I don't think it was noted on sheet 12. Clearly, DP is requiring restoration of that disturbed easement area. Can we make sure, do you happen to know, is that a largely native seed mixture? Or is that something that can be coordinated? And that may be a question for Mr. Mellon.
well, we're going to have to work that out with the Burlington County Soil Conservation. They will actually be the jurisdiction that will tell us how they want that stabilized. I can indicate to the board there are many methods of stabilization. We will absolutely do whatever is necessary in order to stabilize that area, particularly the slope area as you go down to the Rancocas.
Mr. Chair, are you more concerned that in the level upper areas where the pipeline itself runs, that there would be natives installed there as a part of your park development?
Just as part of, because I know soils will allow some other non-native species. Obviously, priority number 1 becomes stabilization of the entire area, particularly those that are steep slopes. And then secondarily, if the utilization of native species, and whether that's woody shrub material that ends up being part of the process with soils, or whether it is just herbaceous, maximizing the utilization of natives for that stabilization, I think should be an objective.
I think that's an objective that we could agree to, as an objective, not as an absolute. Because
To the extent that we understand that soils ultimately, at the end of the day, has
Right,
jurisdiction on that.
right.
And certainly,
And some non-natives may be transitioned, right?
Understood.
and as we're working through the exact route of this pipe, I'll be more than happy to take all your suggestions into account and incorporate that into our design. And I can see you and I going out there on site and identifying what areas have to be saved, where we can put the pipe, and we'll simply re-engineer the pipe to make that work.
All right, so we'll note that soil stabilization objective agreement in the resolution.
That was all I had, Mr. Chairman.
That's it, okay. Board members, specific questions to Mr. Gravel before we move on to Mr. Mellon? No?
I do have a question. I don't know if this is appropriate for Mr. Gravlin, but in the permit from DEP, it states that the disturbed areas within 50 feet of the top of bank of the south branch of the Rancocas Creek shall be restored. How is that different from the entire easement area, the pipe? How is that 50 feet? How is that different in terms of
I
restoration?
think maybe you'll bring Jim in for that.
Okay.
Yeah, because the permit's a little more his baby.
Sounds good.
All right, well,
I would like to thank Mr. Miller. He has been cooperative the whole way through. I've spoken to him many, many times on this project.
thank you for that comment. Mr. Mellon?
Good. Jim, would you like to give us a benefit of your professional? Let me swear him in. We swear or affirm the testimony you give is truthful, truthful to the truth, so help you God.
I do,
About your education and experience, please.
absolutely. I'm a professional engineer registered in New Jersey. I have an undergraduate degree in civil engineering, master's degree in water resources, environmental engineering. I'm the president of Churchill Consulting Engineering, which is a approximately 100 people firm in Berlin, New Jersey. My expertise and why I'm here on this application here tonight is in water resources, design, stormwater management, floodplain management, as well as environmental permitting. I've served as zoning board engineer for Gloucester Township, Camden County, assisted with other townships, appeared before many boards in New Jersey.
Mr. Chairman, as you accepted as an expert in science civil engineering, specifically as regards to stormwater.
He is accepted.
So,
What? Can we examine your question and we'll
Sure.
let Jim work through his thing and we'll get to that? Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Jim.
Got it.
You're-
got it. So good evening, everyone. I'm going to try not to retread a lot of the conversation and testimony that's been provided tonight already. Again, I'm going to focus on more so the stormwater management and the permitting side. So as we noted before, one of the major changes that we made on this job, on this design, is that we had to seek an alternative location for the overflow system for this basin. Mr. Gravlin stated it before that it is standard engineering practice to have a designed overflow for a system as opposed to just infiltrating it into a low point all like up to the 100-year storm. I agree with that statement completely. And so when we were brought onto the project, that's one of the first things that we assisted with just kind of brainstorming how are we going to do this. And it was very apparent since there was the condition of the settlement that the township would provide an easement across the township property to the Rancocas Creek, that was the most suitable alternative to that design. It provides, and one of the main things that makes that viable is that, the elevation of this site in this basin in particular versus the Rancocas Creek is a substantial change in elevation, approximately 30 to 50 feet. And so there's a significant amount of drop in elevation that we can get that water to the Rancocas Creek despite the fact that it's several hundred feet away. And so all that said, we decided that was the most appropriate place to design that overflow. And Mr. Gravlin described the alignment of that and how we made that happen. The implications of that design, there's a couple of things. First off, that triggered NJDEP review, which we've already talked about. And that triggered DEP review because the Rancocas Creek is a coastal waterway. So meaning it is a tidal waterway ebbs and floods, and because of that, it's regulated under waterfront development rules by the NJDEP. And so we need to get a waterfront development individual permit to allow that outfall to be constructed at that location. And so the other condition of that is that when you go to the department for waterfront development permits, you also then trigger their review of the stormwater management. And so we knew that going in, that they were also going to dig into the stormwater design. And so getting back to that outlet, and now that we were going to try to avoid infiltrating all of this, the 100-year storm into the basin, which is what the previous design was. And that's really important because, again, that is not standard practice. In fact, NJDEP standards, specifically within the NJDEP B&P manual, which is a design manual for how you design stormwater management systems, specifically states that if you can, the only storm that's supposed to be infiltrated, retained and infiltrated into the ground is the water quality storm event. And that's about 1 inch of rain over 2 hours. You know, frequent storm we get all the time in the summertime, right? So that is ideally the only storm you infiltrate into the ground. Anything above that, you're supposed to detain it, make sure you're not flooding out anybody, you're reducing peak rates, and then you let it go in a controlled environment, right? That's ideally how stormwater management is designed throughout our state. And so the previous design was very different. It was, you're taking the 100-year storm, which is about 9 inches of rain, versus that 1 inch of rain. And we're trying to infiltrate that entire thing into the ground. And so if you can avoid that, you'd never want to do that. And so again, with this ability to now discharge into the Rancocas Creek, it opens up that ability to just infiltrate what we need to, the water quality storm, into the ground, and then the rest of the storms, we detain it in accordance with state standards, and then we let it go into the Rancocas Creek. And so that's something that, you know, Jack was able to accomplish in the revised stormwater management design and what we submitted to the DEP.
I just want to clarify something.
Sure.
When you spoke about the previous design, I want to back up. We had an application that we submitted here 2 years ago. That is the previous design that Jim was referring to, which was a 100% infiltration design. We attempted to do that. That is not the previous design that was approved. The previous design that was approved by this board incorporated an outfall pipe that went into the creek development. So just to clarify that, we withdrew that application, we dismissed without prejudice in February of 23, I think. And so, in fact, we're talking about the difference between the discharge into Creekview or discharge over the township lines directly into the creek. That's the difference.
Thank you. So, in addition to that, one thing that we did in the design was, so now we're operating under a new set of stormwater regulations that came into enactment recently. Commonly referred to the green infrastructure rules, and then also they added some changes that were to address climate flooding caused by climate change effects. And so as a result of that, the design is actually brought up to the current standards. And so not only is the basin is designed for, you know, your 2, 10, 100-year storm of today, but the basin is also designed to manage and reduce peak rates released from the basin for the future 100-year storm. And that's on the planning horizon of the year 2100. That, you know, the precipitation that the DEP and other agencies have determined to be a probable estimation or very conservative estimation of what the precipitation amount would be in the year 2100. And so this design actually accounts for that climate change factor and reduces that peak rate even more to consider those effects. And so that's, you know, that's a very conservative approach to stormwater management. And that's where the state's going, and your future applications are all going to have that. So, but that's been incorporated into this design. There's other factors in the design that are very conservative in nature as well. When we did the basin routing, There is no exfiltration factor. What that means is we're assuming that no water is going into the ground at any time during the entire storm event. And that's just not the case, right? When stormwater comes into the basin, some's going to go down in the ground, some's going to go out on the side slopes of the basin. And as a conservative approach, none of that was assumed to be happening. And so, again, that's something that's built into the design to make it conservative. We mentioned before, I think Jack mentioned it, but I'll repeat it because it bears repeating, is with the drywall systems, they're kind of done as an added measure. They were done at the request of the NJDEP, but in terms of the quantity reduction and the function of that basin, it's as if they don't exist. We could remove them from the design and the basin would function just as well. It's an added level of conservatism. And then two more things that I would point out in terms of the conservative approach to design is that there is an additional freeboard within this basin, essentially meaning if the maximum water surface elevation for that future 100 storm elevation is here, there's an additional 2 feet above that before it would crest over the basin. So that's a generally conservative approach to design. And lastly, the outfall pipe that is traversing the township property going out to the Rancocas Creek it's oversized on the scale of 6 times greater than the anticipated flow for the 100-year storm, future 100-year storm. It's still a pretty small pipe. It's only 18-inch pipe, but it is an oversized pipe to account for the what-if scenario where there's even a greater storm that has additional capacity to pass flow. Or should the town want to tie into it, that's another possibility down the line. We require further engineering analysis, but it's definitely possible to do. So all that said, I mean, that kind of highlights the different things that went into, what we worked with Jack, because we knew these are the things that DEP is going to want to see. From the application standpoint, it was a benign, it determined to be a very benign impacts in terms of environmental impacts, teeny species, clearing, all those things. Those were never the issues when we discussed it with the DEP. Stormwater management was the sole focus of, is what I would say to summarize it for that application, and why we put all those levels of a conservative approach to the design. So, as stated, the approval was received by the NJDEP. We're going to address questions in a second, but the last thing I wanted to say is that we recognize that the last thing that has to be done is we have to go to the Soil Conservation District and obtain approvals for the outfall, the stabilization of the outfall, et cetera. And as stated, they would have the final say in what is required from the stabilization standpoint, the vegetation that's needed to do that.
Jim, before I hand you off for questions, just when NJDEP does a waterfront permit review as they did here, do they look at other regulations other than just the waterfront development regulation? Is that a part of their review process?
Well, yeah, actually, I mean, so the way the waterfront development rules are written, they actually bring in essentially all of their rules into it. So they look at any requirements that are under the Flood Hazard Area Control Act rules, the stormwater management rules, so other portions of the state. It would bring in CAFR requirements and things like that, but that's not applicable here. But to answer your question, yes, they look at the suite of their rules, and you would basically have to address all of them under that one set of rules.
Have I characterized that to you in the past as a don't get egg on the agency space kind of process?
Yes.
Yeah, so we want to make sure that something doesn't crop up that embarrasses the agency because we've issued a permit over here that's inconsistent with our other regulations.
That's correct.
And that's what they do.
Yes.
Good. Now, questions?
So your question, if I can summarize it, was the distinction between that 50 feet. And so so that 50 feet is actually coming, again, as I described, the flood hazard Area Control Act rules come under the rules as well. And so typically, any waterway, or not typically, any waterway in New Jersey has what's called a riparian zone. Varies in size of it, in this case, 50 feet, and that's why they make a distinction within that 50 feet. There's an added burden to make sure you're stabilizing it and in accordance with their standards. So that's why they call it out. Beyond that, within the permit, I don't know that there's a great, they're not making us put back woody vegetation. To address your question earlier, it would likely be done with some herbaceous mix that, would keep it open for maintenance in the future. But it would all be done, the question of indigenous species, that's typically a requirement in the soil conservation districts. So I don't anticipate that would be a problem at all to incorporate.
Mr. Franks, anything else?
Not for me at this time, Mr. Miller.
All right, Mr. Miller, questions?
No.
No, sir.
Nothing. Board? No questions? Okay.
Okay.
Any other testimony, Mr. Frank?
No, those are our witnesses.
I'll give you a brief time to sum up if you
Sure.
need it.
So just to sum up, we were obliged to come back here for an amended approval that reflected the changes that we needed to make to comply with the stipulation of settlement that was agreed between all the parties. We made those changes, and through careful engineering, we determined that we needed an NJDEP permit. We got that permit. We're in compliance with your stormwater management regulations and your standards. There are no changes to the previously approved subdivision plan other than the specific sort of engineering details that we discussed here. And I'd ask for amended approval from the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're going to open this up to public comment, so stay there, Mr. Frank, because you may have some comments to add. So we'll open up public comment. Lady in the front row, hand up, dark hair, glasses on her head. You step forward. Give your full name and your address and be sworn.
Deborah Playa, 50 Bancroft Lane, Hainsport.
You swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and the truth and the truth and the truth.
I do. First, in April 28th, I had prepared a packet, and on May 1st, I had delivered it to the Joint Land Use Board. It was, at the first meeting, of May, it was admitted as an Exhibit L, and I would just like to renew that request that packet be admitted as an exhibit. I'm objecting to this application, and the basis is, as I understand it, and I believe that Mr. Miller is correct, because I looked at the engineering plans, Lot 18 is going to be maintained by the HOA. It's noted on the engineering plans. And as I understood Mr. Taylor's question, Lot 9 is also supposed to be, according to testimony from the applicant, Lot 9 is also supposed to be maintained by the HOA. I didn't hear anything about Lot 10, but putting aside whether or not it's maintained by the HOA or by the township, my concern is the Clean Water Act. And in the packet that I had submitted, and this is an issue I had brought before the Township Committee back in August of 2022, there was a case that was decided, it's a federal court case that was decided by the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. It's a case that I was involved in. It's called Shark River Cleanup Coalition versus Wall Township and the estate of Fred McDowell. In that case, Fred McDowell owned a sizable amount of wooded land next to the Shark River. Wall Township, just like in this situation, took an easement and they put a pipe on that easement. And that, years into the future, there was a soil erosion. Under the Clean Water Act, if you have sand and it discharges into navigable waters, that's a violation of the Clean Water Act. The question is it man-made or is it a natural occurrence? If it's a natural occurrence, there's no liability. If it's man-made, there's liability. A hiker discovered this soil erosion
reported it to the Shark River Cleanup Coalition, who sued both Wall Township and Fred McDowell. Fred McDowell stands in the same shoes as Hainesport Township, and the HOA, presuming that they are going to be maintaining this pipe, they stand in the shoes of Wall Township. We were able to successfully defend that lawsuit. We got it dismissed only on a technicality. The notices required under the Clean Water Act were deficient. Even though we got it dismissed on a technicality, Wall Township paid $200,000 to defend that lawsuit. Fred McDowell spent $100,000 to defend that lawsuit. If they had been found liable under the Clean Water Act, the prevailing party is entitled to get their attorney's fees paid. So let's say that a citizen brings a lawsuit, and anybody can bring a lawsuit under the Clean Water Act if they find a violation. They are entitled to get their attorney's fees paid. Wall Township's was $200,000. So this citizen gets his attorney's fees paid, that's $200,000. Now we're at $400,000. Yes, you still have to remediate the pipe. We don't know how much that's going to be, and you still have to do remediation to in this situation, Rancocas Creek. You could be looking at $500,000 to $1 million in potential liability. I seriously doubt that a development of 41 senior citizens is going to be able to afford a $500,000 judgment or $1 million, and assuming Hainesport gets sued, they're going to have to pay that. It's not a burden, it's not a risk that should be imposed upon the taxpayers of Hainesport. So for that reason, I object, and I just want to note that somebody on Hainesport Happenings had said, pipe's probably not going to break. I think that you should talk to the residents of Anchor Court. They have a pipe on there that has broken 3 times in 20 years. And each time, a silt fence gets erected where the pipe goes into the retention pond. And here, you know, we could be looking at a pipe that breaks, nobody is aware of it, and you've got all kinds of discharge of pollutants, soil, sand, whatever it is, into the Rancocas Creek, and it could be a very significant burden for the taxpayers of Hainesport, so for that reason, I object.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Frank, you want to address the Third Circuit? You want to address the Third Circuit opinion and the pipe, I'll call it the pipe break issue?
Well, not really, but I do want to address the fundamental objection, which is something which is not within the scope of what this board is hearing and deciding tonight. If there's a genuine liability issue for the municipality, I think that's something that's properly dealt with when the governing body addresses whether or not it's going to grant an easement. This body's here to decide things under the site plan and subdivision ordinance, not to address municipal liability concerns. It's more properly the governing body and your administrators. As far as that goes, I don't really think that's what we're here to hear tonight. But having said that, I have a couple questions for Ms. Blythe, if I may ask her a few questions.
Ms. Blythe, can you approach the microphone?
And I asked Ms. Blythe this morning.
Well, what's the approach, counsel? Ms. Blythe, you stay you're the witness, so you stay at the microphone. I understand. You can limit it to that, though. Okay.
I asked Ms. Blythe this morning.
Yes, for the limited purpose that you've represented at the sidebar. I think you are sworn, actually.
Yeah, I am sworn.
You're sworn? Okay, I'm sorry. Ms. Blythe, are you an attorney at law in practice in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I am.
Are you here this evening representing anyone?
No.
Are you here in an individual capacity?
Yes, I am a resident of Hainesport. I have lived here since 2004, and I have the right
under the municipal land use law to object, to make a statement. I have the right under the U.S. Constitution. I have the right under the New Jersey Constitution.
You do. I'm just trying to understand your position with regard to this application.
I am here in an individual capacity representing myself.
Wonderful. Have you ever been here representing anyone other than yourself?
No.
No, no, okay. I'd like to introduce an exhibit, it's Exhibit A3. I'm going to share copies of it with the board.
Is that what we discussed that?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So marked as A3?
Yeah.
The exhibit will speak for itself. You're just going to have her identify it?
Yeah.
Am I entitled to
You're going to give
a
her...
Give it a give out.
I don't think the people understand what kind of hearing this is.
They gave away the answer. Ms. Blythe, I'm going to mark this as A3. Ms. Blythe, this is an email exchange that you and I had in July of 2022.
Yes.
You can see that's what it is. Can you please read for me?
Mr. Frank, is that necessary?
Yeah.
We have the document. The board can read it. It speaks for itself.
Now, I want everyone in this room to know what Mr. Frank is attempting to do, because he, no, wait a minute,
No.
wait a minute.
Let's,
He
both of you,
threatened me.
stop. You're not quarreling in front of the board on what you think the question should or shouldn't be. I limited counsel cross-examination of you, which it is, to, let me finish,
Okay.
to identifying this letter, the contents of which we can all read. It speaks for itself. I'm going to limit counsel's cross-examination
Okay.
to that unless you have something new to discuss.
Well, then I don't need to cross this Blythe, then I'm going to read what she wrote to me in the record. And I think it's very important because we're here about a settlement agreement between parties that were involved in litigation and about effectuating that settlement. And I do not believe that Ms. Blythe should properly be objecting to that settlement agreement for the reasons that are set forth in the second paragraph on this page.
The exhibit is marked and it's in the record. Which paragraph? Just identify it.
The
There's,
second paragraph on page 1.
it's what you would like to read into the record, but it's already in the record by virtue of it being marked. So that's the end of that line of
Good
question.
enough. Thank you very much.
May I make a brief statement?
Briefly. And it should be on point of what we just discussed.
I am a member of the Creekview HOA. I am not on the board. I am simply a resident. Not only am I a member of the HOA, I am a resident of the Township of Hainesport. The Creekview was represented by John J. Novak. He is the attorney of record. Mr. Frank knows that, although he was not the attorney who was involved in that litigation. But he is very much aware because he has been sending all of the documentation to Mr. Novak's office in Toms River, New Jersey.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other,
Mr. Chairman, I just can't let that stand. I'm very sorry. But in this correspondence from an attorney to an attorney about a matter that was pending before this board,
Mr. Frank, I'm not sure that this back and forth is relevant to the issues that we have here today to decide, to be honest with you.
Mr. Chairman, I must object to your barring this from being read into the record so that everyone in the room can know what it is that I'm talking about.
It's now been marked as an exhibit. Everyone in the room can come read it as an exhibit.
Well, what if somebody in the audience wants to comment about it?
Counsel, we're done.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any other? Lady with a hand up on the left side, halfway back, yes. Yes, you were the lady with the hand up, I think.
Yeah, you said left side, and I was...
Well, your other left.
Right hand, please. You swear or testimony you do will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but truth, so help you God.
I did.
Your name?
Janice Ludden, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Hainsport Township Environmental Commission. I have a letter that, I have copies for everybody that I can pass out. Ludden.
Sure, we'll mark that exhibit as Exhibit B. Exhibit B, Mr. Frank. Do you have a copy of this?
We received one late today, yes.
Okay.
From today? Yeah.
All right, Ms. Ludden, this is a letter from the commission
Yeah.
dated April 6, 2024,
Me.
to this
Oh,
board.
I'm sorry.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Bob, do you have a copy of this? You guys got a copy?
Yes, it appears to be addressed to the township committee, not this board.
Well, it says Hainsport Township Joint Land Use Board.
Oh, I see, it's addressed, okay.
Did I get the wrong letter, or?
No, you have the right one. I just said your committee members, but board members is more appropriate.
Well, it does say committee members after that, but the address is to the board.
It is to you guys, and maybe to the committee as well. My understanding is that the easement has not been approved by the township yet. Is that true?
I think that's a correct understanding.
Okay, so I'm just going to preface with, I don't know how we can approve a plan with the condition that if they can't manage the stormwater on the property, how we can approve a plan that requires an easement, unless that is already approved, is my opinion. But I will just read the letter. So at our meeting on the 31st, our committee reviewed the final development site plan for Longbridge Estates, the Amani Senior Citizen Housing.
Let me just interrupt. The letter is now in evidence, and
Okay.
it's a long letter.
It is a long letter.
It would be preferable if you could summarize it for us.
Sure. Basically, we object to the easement through the park. We actually just saw the plans last Wednesday. We took a field trip on Saturday through the park. There is a lot of completely undisturbed areas in the park. Basically, there's parts in there that talk about how Reagan Design Group's assessment of the property was that it was a surprising treasure, and point one. It's remained a haven. It's very unique. It's rare to see this much undisturbed land. The park is a bend, Creek Turn is the turn, and where this pipe currently in the plans that I saw is proposed to come is right at the bend. So if you're on the Rancocas, your view as you come around the bend of Hainsport will be, this concrete structure that supports this 18-inch pipe. As you're walking along the trail at the top, you will see the disturbance of that. I couldn't see from the plans whether there's been any inventory of the trees that would be affected by this, but there's a lot of very mature trees, 150-year-old trees that have been there longer than Hainsport's been incorporated. There's animals that live there. But the summary is that Creek Turn Park allows Hainsport to preserve this natural resource as part of the environment in our town for the benefit of all of our residents, now and for future generations. The land belongs to the residents of Hainsport. It's our view it should not be devalued for the profits of a single business, individual, or family. Although the DEP of New Jersey has given its approval, does not mean it's in our best interest of our town. I realize that the denial of the easement is not under this board's thing, but in my opinion, the reason why that you can't manage the stormwater on the site is because they're cramming in 41 units into a small area. Currently, the land is taking in all the rainwater and it's staying on the site. So it depends on how much you put onto that site. And then I know the plan was pre-approved prior. When we looked at it, we did notice that there are recommended street trees that are non-native, the Norway spruce and the Zakawi, both of those are listed as invasive on New Jersey's strike team, so I would recommend that those trees be replaced with something. I also have that written down.
As a secondary item?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Now,
go ahead.
your commission has how many members?
We have 7, well, 5 that are appointed, and then we have 2 representatives from the township committee that sit in with us.
And I assume this letter was sent after a vote of the commission?
Yes, everybody that was at the meeting discussed it, agreed, a formal vote, I don't know what you're making, but yes, I have members here, if they can confirm, so.
No, your
Yeah,
representation.
Yes,
is-
I'm representing the
Right,
environment.
that's just fine. While you're up here on the street tree issue, Scott, what is that?
So what we will do, I'm not aware that Norway spruce or Zelkova serrata, either of those are listed as invasive species, so I will follow up on that. And if the applicant is willing and agreeable, we will double check the New Jersey website. And if the applicant would agree to to do a species substitution, we can then facilitate that as a condition.
We'll certainly agree to substitution.
Neither of those are native, and I did find.
I'm aware that they're not native. Just, I'm not aware that either one of those is listed as originally. So one of their street tree species are the Acer platanoides, which is Norway maple, which is most definitely an invasive species.
Agreed.
The plan has since been revised to eliminate that in place of willow oak, which, as you know, is native.
Mhm.
But we will follow up with
Yeah.
this list and with the applicant to facilitate if they are listed.
And the applicant agrees to swap out trees if necessary?
Absolutely, yes, we did. I
All
have
right.
a question, if I may.
Of course.
Did you perform a land survey of the area that would be affected by the easement?
What do you mean by land survey?
Did the surveyor go out there and mark where the easement was going to be?
Did a survey, well, no.
No?
I was not a surveyor, I did not hire a surveyor, I am a volunteer. But I did not see any survey plans, I did not see on your site plan anything marked out as any of the existing trees. I did not see any of that on the site plan. We did what we could do in the amount of time that we had to, there's pictures on the back. This park is a beautiful park. The park that you're talking about going through has been undisturbed for, a lot longer than any of us have been here, and it'd be nice to preserve it for a lot longer than,
Understood. Just to understand, how much area is proposed in the area that the easement is proposed to be cleared so that the parking can be installed?
on the plan that I saw, it was a 20-foot wide, straight from your property to the creek.
How much area is that?
It's, I actually calculated the easement area and at the creek, it has to flare out because of the additional disturbance. It's 0.24 acres, less than 1/4 acre.
Just under a quarter of an acre.
Let me ask you a question. If you had a Lamborghini and I scratched the rear quarter panel, would that be okay, even though it's just a small percentage of your Lamborghini?
Well, I would suggest that,
Hold the clock until the end, please.
that the Lamborghini was scratched a long time ago when Columbus came to these shores, and all of us had our homes and shopping centers and
I
factories
disagree.
built all over this continent.
All right.
So,
Mr. Franks, be careful what you ask for next time.
But if I may, I'm asking for that because I'm asking for a comparison. I put up here your image of your concept park.
Yes, that's all previously cleared land, there's existing, and we're talking about an area that has not been cleared.
And there are trails shown in that area that you're saying.
You know the difference between a trail and putting in a pipe, that you have to have the equipment to put the pipe and make sure the pipe is maintainable, versus somebody walking around trees, but when you put a path in, you avoid the big, huge willow oak that's been there for 150 years.
Did you hear our conversation?
I have been there, it's very dense, it's very difficult to put just a curb and a pipe and avoid what is back there. So I have a right, our commission has a right
You
to
most certainly do.
disagree with, and I,
Thank you for your
in my
question.
opinion, I would say 41 units just don't fit in there.
All right, anyone else? Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. We have two people, fellow in the front row, plaid shirt.
Hi, my name is Steve Morona. I'm a resident of Bancroft Avenue, 16 Bancroft,
Can you spell your last name?
Worona.
W-O.
Worona, like Corona with a W, Worona.
Okay. You swear or affirm testimony you will be the truthful, truth, nothing but true, so help you God.
Absolutely.
Corona doesn't sound bad right now. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
It's all right.
I'm a simple man. I live over here, I see beautiful trees, beautiful land for water. Can I move this, Sean, here? I just have one point to make. We're here for a lot of nonsense.
You're talking about the layout plan.
41 houses. If we were, say, simply to remove the center houses and make that a retention pond, that would work. But the reason why it won't work is because developers want to build multiple housing to get multiple profit dollars at the expense of future board members, future generations. This is the problem. If we simply delete housing, we could put a bigger retention pond. We wouldn't have to put a pipe in and destroy a lot of land around that pipe to get heavy machinery down there. Now, the attorney mentioned that about trees. I would assume a site survey has to be done and has to specify every tree that's in that location. I built a house once on Staten Island on wetlands. We had to have a survey that was so detailed, and there were certain trees we couldn't even touch because they were rare. We couldn't touch them, we couldn't take them down. So now, if I was to put a pipe here, and these trees are here, 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 what do? I go around it. It doesn't make sense.
All right, well, Scott, can we address the tree issue?
To the extent that it's practical, there are some limitations within the alignment of pipes and manholes for the stormwater to still function. But the applicant has agreed to work with our office, and I would like Mr. Miller involved in that as well, to work on the alignment for that final alignment to minimize the removal of specimen trees. It is likely that there will be vegetation that has to be removed, just as when the park gets developed or any home gets built, there will need to be some tree removals.
Specimen trees being trees of what size?
Well, I don't want to characterize because there hasn't been I have not walked this alignment. I have walked a good portion of the park property on multiple occasions, so there are some mature specimens out there. Trying to avoid those. Obviously, the larger the tree, the older it is more difficult to mitigate for those trees. We can do, and there are requirements for locating those trees and also for mitigating the removal of those trees for replanting under the municipalities, both existing and recently adopted tree protection ordinances. They will have to comply with those. The goal here, though, you don't want to take down a larger tree if it can be avoided. The applicant has agreed to work with the board of township professionals to minimize that disturbance.
So that's the answer to your tree question.
Well, that's a tree question. But why not just reduce the number of homes and build a bigger retention pond? That would eliminate the pipe, upsetting future generations of our children.
You understand, I assume, that the previous approvals
not being revisited today. What's being visited today are the stormwater issues that we've discussed at some length. That's all that's being...
I'm just trying to say, why can't that property be made to retain its own water?
I understand.
Me as a resident here, I can't add on to my house and keep adding on because my land has to retain so much absorption rate. Why aren't these houses following that same stipulation? What was the reason why the Diamond Diner and like where the, I don't know if it's the Pep Boys or whatever is built over there, they have retention ponds over there, and they were built to adequate size to the building that their property sits on, correct? Now, they're building all these units over here, and we're minimizing the absorption pond. For what reason? I don't get that. Because it's money, there's a lot of money involved over here. Cut down on the number of houses, put a bigger retention pond in, and we eliminate all this disturbing the earth, ruining the creek. You know, people dump all kinds of crap into these sewers, and it's gonna feed right into the Rancocas. And it's gonna affect us. You know, water absorbs into earth. Also, when I built the house on Staten Island, we had to put a dry well in for every unit we built. There had to be, if it was a semi-house, you had a 12-foot and a 12-foot, a 24-foot wide unit, we had to put maybe 2 8-foot diameter rings in. They had to be at least 8 to 10 feet deep, which we got inspected. They did percolation and borings to make sure that they would absorb the water. And they weren't frivolous. They're being used over there. Why would they be called frivolous and useless here? I don't get that. They have different zoning, different ground, different absorption.
I don't think, I'm not taking their position, but I don't think they describe them as frivolous. They describe them as in addition to.
No, the one gentleman said they'd basically be useless. There's no need for them.
I didn't hear useless being used as a descriptor.
That's right. So,
Okay, well,
you know,
that's all right.
But I'm just saying that this whole thing could be really eliminated, eliminate some houses.
Thank
It's
you.
simple.
Appreciate your position, thank you very
Thank you.
much. There's another fellow behind you, purple shirt, please come forward.
Bruce Alderman, 202 Lumberton Road. Bruce Alderman, Alderman. Derman.
Okay, you swear or affirm testimony you give is the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. Want to give you my background a little bit. So I have a master's degree in environmental engineering and been doing 30 years of work in water treatment industry. I really appreciate the efforts of Mr. Taylor and Mr. Miller. Obviously, you've been doing good technical work as well as the applicant. It's very clear that all the... Sorry. Again, just to repeat, appreciate all the efforts of Mr. Taylor and Mr. Miller and the applicant. It's very clear that from a technical perspective, everything has been done from an appropriate manner here so far. I just wanted to speak to the rest of the board here so that the layman can have an understanding a little bit about the outfall a little bit further. You know, there may be a perception that the outfall is something simplistic with an 18-inch pipe. The fact of the matter is that when we come to that 35-foot drop, all of the 35-foot drop that they're talking about from the housing to the Rancocas is in the last 35 feet. So it's a very steep slope that they're having to stabilize there. So it is a very challenging outfall that they're having to deal with, and it will actually have a very wide impact on what that outfall looks like for stabilization and for riprap and for all of that. So very technically possible, everything is going to be clearly done and done appropriately, but just want to talk about the aesthetics so that everybody is aware that we're not talking about like the church. If you remember a couple years ago when they had their stormwater outfall to the Rancocas, where you're talking about something about the size of the desk here, you're talking about something that's 30 feet wide and 30 feet long, a very large, impactful view of what that outfall will look like. So again, very technically clear, but it's going to be a large impact on that bin of what the appearance of the outfall is. So just for review.
All right, thank you. Mr. Frank, is-
Have you examined the actual site design drawing?
I haven't had the opportunity to see the application.
Okay, I just wanted to make that. real
Yep,
clear.
very
Thank you.
clear. I haven't seen the drawings.
Thank you, Mr. Frank. Appreciate it.
If I may just point something out to the board about what we just heard.
Well, you have witness testimony on that? All right, well, why don't we just get the rest of the public comment? And then if you have any additional witness testimony on the public comment, we can hear that. Anybody else from the public who's present here wish to comment or be heard?
Mr. McKay, if I could just point out, we do have members of the public online.
Yeah, I'm aware of that, and I'll just get to them in a minute. I did see a hand go up way in the back. Yes, ma'am, please come forward.
My name is Jamie Brooks, and I'm a resident for 20 years. I live on Hastings Lane, 76 Hastings.
You swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Could you give me your name again, please?
Jamie, Jaime. Last name is Brooks, Brooks.
Ms. Brooks, just bend that microphone down a little bit. That's good.
Could you
Okay.
spell your last name again, please?
Brooks.
Okay.
Okay, I just wanted to go on the record that based on the risks of the erosion and things like that, I object to this.
Okay, thank you. Lady, yes? Oh, I didn't even see it. Let me take you with the plaid top.
Deborah Harris, Harris, Deborah, Debra, 7 Elsinore Drive.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. I'm also an attorney. I do not represent anyone. I am here as a resident, as per my address. I'm Deputy General Counsel to a very large insurance company, and I deal with risk a lot. I also deal with a lot of executives. And in my daily job, one of my main responsibilities is to speak risk in terms of like stuff that a toddler could understand, like bullet points, okay? So while I understand that what you're saying is that liability is not within the purview of this particular testimony and hearing and discussion, I do think that it is something that should be in the back of your mind. Given all of the statements and testimony that has been given by the public thus far, Mrs. Playa, Mr. Alderman, Janice Ludden, I think they've all done a wonderful job of presenting a variety of different challenges in regards to the positioning of this property, the positioning of the pipe, the cliff that it hangs over, some of the native species, as well as an easement being required, the disturbance of a large portion of the territory that's over there that's going to be potentially a park. Under the Clean Water Act, you know, I'll just say it this way, like I understand that there's contract negotiations that have been going on for a couple of years, right? I mean, I do contracts day in and day out. They take a really long time to iron out. There's always nuances, but at the end of the day, there are certain things that you cannot contract away. And while you can try and dot your I's and cross your T's and try and ensure that the appropriate parties have the liability, as a plaintiff and under the Clean Water Act, federal government allowed for standing of citizens. So I could come in off the street, notice a problem, which is why Ms. Playa's case is so important to you, because anybody, a kayaker, anybody, could notice that there's a problem. Oh my gosh, 7 feet underneath that 30-foot pipe, 3 years later, is starting to erode from, you know, the dripping, right? I mean,
canyons are formed by this type of thing. It takes time. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I would put a bookmark in that. That's what I tell my executives all the time. These things are not a matter of if, they're a matter of when. You can try and contract your liability away, but at the end of the day, if I'm a plaintiff, I'm going to do a shotgun lawsuit. I'm going to put all of your names on a document. I'm going to march you all down, and the process of discovery that you have to pay for, that's going to be problematic for you. You could say, well, I've got insurance. This is great for folks like me. I'm speaking now, and you are interrupting, so if the chair wants to recognize you, then you need to speak to the chair.
Madam, please stop. If I ask you to stop, I would
Absolutely.
appreciate it if you would stop. Mr. Frank, your objection is noted. Ma'am, your comments are getting a little bit off the points here, and a little bit argumentative, I think.
I'm happy to
So
bring them.
why don't you wrap up?
I'm happy to bring them home for you. So amongst the testimony that I heard that is relevant for you is there's not really a plan. My understanding is that the NJDEP permit is conditional upon your approval. So I'm not really sure that that's really an approval. I would suggest that there be some type of double checking of that. The park needs a trail, needs an access road, so the pipe's going to be curved to potentially, provide for aesthetic pleasing trails. Punting of the easement to the township. It's kind of a hot potato. We already talked about the liability. The easements between the lawyers, understand that. The maintenance is going to be for the HOA. It's already being worked on. 41 seniors. Practically speaking, I don't know how much the developers are really going to fund that HOA fund in order for folks to be able to maintain a stormwater pipe of the magnitude that we're talking about here, when it's a matter of if and not when. So basically what I've heard in summary is that it's not really a plan, and you guys are really the only obstacle between this happening and the potential ramifications down the road, whatever they are, the environment, the species, the funding, the liability for the taxpayers. You guys are the last bastion, and that's why all of these people are either here today in this room, and they can raise their hand if they're here for this, and potentially online. And they want to be heard, and they want you to act in their best interests. And they're saying that there's not a plan, it's too many houses, there's too many ifs, ands, whats, there's too many, well, we'll figure it out. It's not a good plan, and you guys should not approve it. Thank you for your
ma'am.
time.
My name is Susan Crowe, C-R-O-W-E, 4 Anchor Court. I live in the Creekview Development, Lakeside.
I swear to affirm testimony given tonight to be the truth, the truth,
I do.
What's your
Thank
first
you.
name?
Susan, S-U-S-A-N. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I moved to Hainesport in 2001 and was drawn to this beautiful area. We live in a beautiful development with trees, wildlife, a beautiful lake. Our kids all fish and enjoy it. The diner came in, we were very excited about it. We knew that there was land behind it, and have noticed recently there's markings on trees. We know what's going to be put down or cut down. I have a couple of concerns, just 4 items I wanted to discuss. Obviously, the retention ponds. Our development has become the retention pond development of Hainesport. You have a new development that's in across from the entry to the Pep Boys, right where the U-turn is. Huge retention pond between that new little cove where they crammed 16 homes and the lakeside development. Now you're asking across the street, in front of the diner and next to, there's the big retention pond in front of that. Now we're going to add another one behind the actual residents that live on Wharton, which I think is really intrusive to where they live. It's also going to be really not pretty to look at. I wouldn't want that behind my home, I have to be honest with you. I live at the bottom of the hill of Bancroft Lane at a 3-way stop sign. When it rains, it pours, and that street, Anchor Court into Bancroft Lane, where all that stormwater goes and goes out into the Rancocas, that pipe has collapsed 4 times in the 22 years that I've lived here. They have torn up my neighbor's yard 4 times to replace that pipe. And they do put the silk and do all of those things, but the disruption to that street and to our neighborhood is really, it's a lot to take. And the street repairs have never been completed. The other part of this is the traffic flow that's going to result as you add 41 more homes that speed down Bancroft Lane on a daily basis. And I can ask you guys to put a radar out there. I can tell you they're not going 25. And it is an absolute cut through for everybody that lives in Lumberton, Sage Run, Hainesport Chase, come through our neighborhood. So now we're going to add 41 more houses. Lastly, the aesthetics of this development. You have a new road for this new development that you just put in off of Route 38. And now you're going to add another street here. It doesn't even butt up to the new street that was put in. So aesthetically, this looks hideous in my opinion. I wouldn't want to live here. You're deteriorating the property value of all of the people that live in the Lakeside community, in my opinion. It's not pretty. It doesn't look aesthetically pleasing to anybody. Particularly me, and I'm sure plenty of the residents here would agree with that. So lastly, this pipe, and I'm listening, I'm not an attorney, I'm a resident. So what I understand is that the HOA of this community, which still has to be developed, right?
Now, could you use the mic?
Fees have to be set.
Could you use the mic?
Oh, sure. So fees have to still be set for what that HOA is going to be, right? I know what we pay. I don't know if everybody here has an HOA, but we have a nice one. It's not cheap, but we do have to pay for it. So these are all senior citizens on fixed incomes that are going to live in these homes. I don't know that they're going to be able to afford whatever the HOA assessment is that's going to be put upon them. But the pipe that leaves their facility and goes into the town's property is the responsibility of everybody in Hainesport to pay for. And we don't know what that's going to cost. So I'd like to understand what that's going to be, if we have an idea of what that would cost. And then lastly, my understanding is that this pipe is just going to jet out and drop 35 feet. And if we have a storm and that water is dropping 35 feet, I also live where that lake is in Lakeside, it floods, okay? So now you're going to add the runoff of 41 homes and the storm drainage because you're going to cut all the trees down that naturally absorb it, and it's going to run into the Rancocas. So those are my concerns. I'm not for this community, and I love the idea of reducing the number of homes and keeping the retention pond in the middle. Put 20 homes there. Don't put 40. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
So as one of the original homeowners in that development, which was originally K.F. Nanning and Quaker, is that you talk about that you were happy the diner came. Well, a lot of these residents have not been here this long. I know Deborah has been, obviously yourself. Did anybody not realize what that property was originally supposed to be used as?
I don't know.
Okay, and I'm going to explain that to you. That actually was a commercial site. And at that time, the intensity of that site, which was permitted if somebody came with a permitted use, would have been a lot worse than today. Those guidelines for DEP, regulations in general for soils, 20 plus years ago, were not as they are today. As we all know, in 2018, the New Jersey DEP has drastically changed stormwater management regulations for everybody through the state. So what I want a lot of people to understand is that, and many of you may not have known, that was a commercial site. That according to our master plan, we were trying to make all of Route 38 commercial. It since has then changed. Just imagine what you would have been through if you had 5+ 3-story office buildings, which were permitted, with all those items, and DEP be less restrictive on it.
No disrespect, but I wouldn't have bought a home here.
There's my point, ma'am. So a lot of people don't do their due diligence to find out what vacant properties are zoned. Because if that had been done, it may have changed your mind, as well as many of these other people. So anybody's allowed to develop their lots.
I understand that.
So I
do it.
listen,
in a
everybody else gets to
respectful
put their
way.
point on record, and I'm going to after being here 22 years. Your development, much like many of them, were all farmlands, they were sand pits, they were everything else that original homeowners that were here were objective to, that all of you live in at this point. But respectfully, is that the point is that lot was and is still somebody's property that they can develop. And the fact that at one time it was a commercial use would have affected your development a whole lot differently than 41 houses.
Not opposing the development of the
So,
property. I'm asking that it be done with the appropriate responsibility and maintenance and guidelines of the state of New Jersey.
All HOAs.
I understand your position, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Two people I saw, gentleman in the back with the blue shirt, and then somebody else on the other side. Take the blue shirt first, since he stood up first.
Bud Burns, 2515 Fostertown Road.
You swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Good evening, Mr. Burns.
Good evening. You woke me up when you said that, all the commercial stuff. Yeah, I've been here since 1978, so I do remember all this commercial stuff. I was on a planning board with Tom back in the 90s, so I do remember a lot of this stuff and how things are growing. All growing around me. Hainsport Chase wasn't there. It's life. But everything I just heard, one thing is this drain pipe that everybody's talking about. Is there any way to make people feel a little bit more at ease by putting an insurance policy or escrow to fix this thing when it does break? Because it sounds like there's history of breaking.
So I'm not going to concede that this will break, sir, respectfully, but
I was also a pipe fitter for 47 years.
I'm going to about expertise.
Yeah, so yeah.
I think this is concrete pipe, though.
I'll do that too. Hey.
So that's one of the most significant topics that the township solicitor and I are trying to work through is exactly how do we secure, and I said that at the intro, how do we secure the obligation of the HOA to maintain the pipe and to keep the town from having any liability in the event that we need maintenance or anything else. So we're working on that. What we're here tonight about, though, is compliance with the site plan and subdivision ordinance of the township, right? Do we or don't we meet the standards? And we put the testimony of our engineers in that we do meet those standards. And respectfully, it's not an illegitimate concern, sir. And we're going to deal with that, but in a different forum, in a different way. It's not really what this board does.
But if you prove things, how does this get rectified?
Well, it becomes a condition of this board's approval that the governing body actually grant the easement that we're talking about to insert the pipe into. And I'm pretty confident that the members of your governing body and your mayor who sit here are listening carefully to the people in the audience who have these concerns, and they're going to make very, very sure that when the agreement is in fact struck, if it is in fact struck, that the town is adequately protected. And the responsibility lies with the HOA and not with the town.
That's what we're asking for.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Glad I could wake you up.
I see a hand in the back, gentleman in white shirt. Please come forward.
My name is Alex DeAngelis, 40 Edgewater Drive, Hainsport, New Jersey.
Could you spell your last name for me?
DeAngelis.
Say it again.
DeAngelis, 40 Edgewater Drive.
First name?
Alex, ALEX.
Okay. You swear or affirm testimony you give will be the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do. I just want to bring a point up to the fact that I'm an original homeowner from 2004. We moved in June 2004, and in July of 2004, the lake overflowed. And it came all the way up to my house, going into my basement. And the township, everyone was at my house, this wasn't supposed to happen, it's a 100-year flood. It wasn't supposed to be the situation. I understand progress, I understand things have to be built. There's no doubt about it. We wouldn't be here today if we didn't have it. My concern is water. The fact that we've all seen Lumberton overflow. We've all seen the streets of the main street down there overflow. We see the creek overflow. We see my lake has overflowed onto my property. In fact, almost washed out every lake house on that lake. It just concerns me. It's not, the storm basin is going to be built for a 100-year flood, blah, blah, blah. But if it's at that point, it's going to overflow into the Rancocas Creek, which is going to overflow even more, something that can't handle it. I just fear that this water being just mismanaged, being dumped into a creek that's overflowing as it begins when we have a flood, which I've seen because I've lived it, the fact that more water going into it is going to cause more of a problem for Lumberton and for all the houses around the lake. That's just my concern, because if I didn't live through it, I probably wouldn't even understand it. But try to understand, you just bought a brand new 4,000 square foot house, not even in there a month, and all of a sudden, this water is up to your house. And they're knocking on your door telling you to get out before the house is going to take your stuff out, because looters are going to come and get before you're going to lose your house. You just put all this money, you just got a mortgage, and it scared the hell out of me. And every time I hear more water going into the Rancocas Creek or going into the lake, whatever, it just scares me. That's all. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. DeAngelis. Appreciate that. Anyone else? Anyone else? Well, gentlemen, yeah, left side.
Hi, my name is Rich Kassler, Casler, and I live on 5 Tidewater Court.
You swear or affirm the testimony you give tonight to be the truthful truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes. So I'd like to ask a question. If, is this property currently multi-purpose zoned? So if this wasn't approved, is there a chance that there would be commercial property going in there?
No, this is
Can I ask, well, no, Kathy, please. Can the planner address that?
Could you restate the question?
Yeah, so if this wasn't approved by the board, and then this property was available, again, could a commercial property or enterprise go into that?
He's asking basically what it's zoned for presently without a variance application.
So the property is within, and just so I can get the citation correct. Bear with me. So it is technically called the Senior Citizen District. The proposed use is a permitted use. We do not have the exhaustive list of what any of the other permitted uses are. From my memory, I do not believe that commercial uses are principally permitted uses on this parcel.
Okay. So then if it was not approved, only another maybe senior citizen or residential development could go in that was approved. Is that correct?
So what is proposed is a permitted use. The senior citizen community, the density does comply with the zoning, and as indicated by council, the 41 units have been approved, and we're here tonight for really the disposition of the stormwater management issue.
And the only other thing I have is in regards to the stormwater management issue, I think you made a great point that the DEP has changed their rules tremendously in 20 years. So if we will look down the road 20 years from now, what might not be approved of the current proposed storm management system? That's
Good point. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just, I do have a copy of ordinance section 104-88, the senior citizen district. Chapter B says development standards within a senior citizen district, the following conventional requirements shall apply. Section 1, permitted uses, the following are permitted uses. A, single-family detached homes. B, townhomes/twin homes. C, public and private educational and recreation facilities. And then conditionally permitted uses under section 1.1 include general commercial uses subject to the standards as defined in 104-41 and office uses subject to the standards as defined in 104-43. So only residential uses are principally permitted, but there are non-residential uses that are conditionally permitted. Townhouses are among the residential uses that are permitted.
Okay. I hope that's clear to everybody. Okay. Second row, lady with tan sweater.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Kane, C-A-N-E, like candy cane. And I reside... Kane, C-A-N-E.
Jennifer,
Yes. I reside at 10 Cove.
you swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, nothing but it.
Yes.
What was your address again?
I'm up at 10 Cove Court, Hainesport, New Jersey, and I am also an original resident since 2004 of Lakeside at Creekview. I want to go on record that I oppose placement of the drain on public use. I understand what you're saying, that they own property and they can develop that property. I'm opposed to placing anything on public land that then is going to affect likely my taxes. I live within Lakeside. As Alex has mentioned, we had that 100-year storm that came all the way up also to, all the way to our property line, up to our doors, all that water. And then also, I've seen the pipe within Lakeside at Creekview need maintenance 3 or 4 times in the last 20 years. And that cost on public land, I'm not sure who pays for that unless the developer or the township board has offered to say, hey, I'm going to bear the cost of all of that maintenance going forward for the rest of the time. I've also walked the property many times back in there. It is completely undisturbed. There are enormous trees and wildlife back there, and I can't see that you can place any kind of equipment back there and not disturb hundreds of trees as you go to all the way to the creek and then down that drop. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
A board member has
I
a
have a
question,
question,
Mrs.
because I've
King.
heard several of you say that there's been problems with, on Anchor Court with the stormwater pipes, and they had to be replaced like 4 times. Who paid for that? Yeah, but so were the owners assessed for that, or was it covered by insurance? I was just wondering, were you assessed specifically for those repairs and replacements? Anybody?
Wasn't there a lawsuit?
All right, so, well, that's just I think respectfully, that nobody can seem to have a definitive answer to that question. All right, so we'll move on.
Okay.
Any other hands here? Yes, sir, come forward, blue shirt.
People.
I have some handouts I'd like to present to the JLUB board.
Your name first, please.
My name is John Kane, C-A-N-E, 10 Cove Court.
You must be Mrs. Kane's husband.
I am.
Sir, before you say anything, I just swear you in. You swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, all truth, nothing but the truth, nothing but it.
I do.
First, what is this handout? Please,
Well, I just want to say one thing. It's pretty impossible to argue with Kathy, because she's really great. But, you know, she's talking about something from like 20, 25 years ago. I don't think that's relevant now, what the zoning was 25 years ago.
Well, I do, that's why I expressed that.
Okay. Well, what is that you're handing out? Please explain that to me.
I have 3 items. I have a petition that I already submitted to the township and the JLUB in late April, or actually on May 1st. I hope you got a copy, but if not, I have a copy. I have some copies, but not enough for everyone. And I have a presentation I created. And then I also want to give the letter that was done by the township. Paula Costco had this done for the Kleiner property that says what an amazing piece of property it is. And I'd like to just read some quotes from that letter. So I want to submit that so that you guys are educated on what an amazing piece of property it is and what a sin would be to cut through it.
I think you can safely, let me just finish, let me deal with this. I think you can safely assume from the poster in the lobby, if from nothing else, that the board is very familiar with the Kleiner property.
Very true.
And so, I'm happy to mark that, that document, and we can make it an exhibit, and we will make it an exhibit. But rather than read it, I'd prefer
Yeah,
to
okay,
simply
I'm not going to read the whole thing, no.
summarize it.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, as for the other, the petition speaks for itself. You said you've tendered it earlier?
Yes, I'll just
And
give some...
so we'll accept a copy and we'll mark it today. But again, if we've previously received it, we don't need to read it in its entirety
No,
today.
I'm not going to read it, I just want to submit it.
Thank you.
It has a lot of signatures from citizens of Hainesport that are this.
Mr. Frank, I see you standing to object. We're going to mark these three exhibits, and I'd ask I'd ask the witness to keep his remarks controlled and limited so that we have enough time to move to other people.
Respectfully ask that the petition is simply not evidential in this context. I'm sure Mr. Kingsbury will explain that to us.
If you have a petition, the board can't accept that. Now, let me explain
go ahead.
the legal reason why. Is if people want to object, they have to be here and object. And nobody can cross-examine a petition. So it can't be accepted by the board. If you have a letter from somebody else who's not here, that can't be accepted either because Mr. Frank can't ask questions of the person who wrote the letter. So that's not acceptable. It's inadmissible.
So all the people that signed this, you're silencing their voices then by not accepting this, okay?
That's correct.
Governing,
They have to be here if they want to say something.
Mr. Counsel, we're going to mark that petition. We're going to take it. Council has appropriately designated the petition as not really relevant, but to understand your position, we'll look at it. It's hearsay. It's objected to by council, and I know you're rising again.
Mr. Chairman, it can go into the board's records as having been submitted to the board, but respectfully, it cannot be reviewed by this board as evidence.
Did I say that? I don't think I did.
I got the impression from what you're saying that you permitted to be distributed to board members and reviewed as part of...
Did I ever say that? I don't think I did. I think I said that we would mark it, and we'd receive it, and it would be dealt with pursuant to guidance from council.
That's fine.
All right? And what's the third thing you want to mark? You said there were three things.
Yeah, the letter, and then I did also walk, I'm a member of the Hainesport Township Environmental...
What's the third document?
The third document is a presentation that's actually going to show you...
Who did it?
I made it.
Okay. And you want to testify about that presentation?
Yes.
You're going to summarize it for us?
It's pictures of what is going to get...
Listen to my question. You're going to summarize it for us?
Yes, I'm going to summarize it.
All right.
I'll
We'll
tell you
mark those three documents as exhibits C, D, and E. And give it to council to take a look at. And walk a copy over to council, our council's office, our council's desk, please. And you have copies to distribute to our professionals.
Yes.
please do so.
This is a petition, this is a study that was done by the township, paid for by the township. It says,
All right, please back to the mic.
Excuse me, Mr. McKay. Could I also get a copy of all three of them for the file?
Yes.
this is the petition, and this is the letter.
Okay.
Letter can be C, petition can be D, and the presentation can be
Can I,
next to.
can I approach your board and give them this now?
No.
No.
With the clerk?
All right.
Clerk has it. Now,
All right,
you
now.
want to summarize your
Yes.
presentation?
I'll tell you what, the first page, well, the letter says that basically this is unbelievable pristine lands that are from like prehistoric times, the sands and everything. That's some of the gist of it. Actually, let me, I have a brief statement.
All right, well, let's stop. We're gonna,
Okay.
you're gonna summarize the presentation.
Yes. Okay, the presentation is, this is the area, and everything that is circled in yellow is either under development or is going to be development. It's developable land. It's all on the Rancocas Creek watershed. So if all of this happens, in addition to this, we're basically destroying the watershed. And it shows where the watershed is in New Jersey and all of the development, including the pipeline. Then there's pictures, then there's some verbiage of the Kleiner letter that says, you know, what pristine lands it is. And then there is also some pictures of trees that are in that pathway. So this will give you, without having to go back there, this will show you what's going to be cut down and what's going to replace it. So this is really what I'd like to be focused on right here. So I'd like to give each one of you this, and this beautiful woodlands on the cliff. This is a cliff that goes straight down about 50 feet. So all of this is going to be clear cut, and it's going to be replaced by that.
You took all these pictures yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
Just
All right, you can hand that out to the board. That's exhibit, what did we say that was, B?
That was E.
CDE, okay, that'll be exhibit E. Well, Mr. Kane, have you, with that, have you concluded?
I think so. I just want to say that I object to this project.
Okay. Have you now concluded?
Yes.
Okay.
Please watch your step there with the wire.
Yeah,
Yep.
please don't.
All right, have you concluded now, Mr. Kane?
Yes. And I also, one more thing, I don't want my property taxes to go up because of this, of having to maintain this pipe. I don't approve of that.
Very well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. The lake that you have now that collects the stormwater from your community, where does that ultimately discharge to when it overflows?
That discharges into the Rancocas Creek,
Okay, thank you.
but it's not on a ancient cliff overlooking the most scenic part of Rancocas Creek. Like this town had the foresight to buy that land, Creek Turn Park. It's an amazing piece of land. If you read the study from Kleiner, it tells you how amazing it is. It's untouched. Rancocas State Park, that had the same kind of cliffs, but in the late 1800s, it was mined. All the sand and clay and everything was removed, and the cliffs were destroyed. This is actually, still exists. So basically, we're going to repeat the mistake of history, and we're going to cut into something that we were smart enough to try and preserve, and we're going to destroy it by putting a big pipe and outfall on it.
Thank you, sir. Lady in the back.
Samantha Loveman. Samantha Loveman, L-O-V, yep, and Loveman, L-O-V-E-M-A-N.
Okay. You swear or affirm the testimony about to give will be the truth, nothing but the truth, nothing else.
I do.
What's your address here?
2514 Creek Road.
Thank you.
I'm going to diverge a little bit, but I promise there's a reason. I live on the Creek Road that's going to have the 72 units for the affordable housing. And so for me, at the end of the day, there's a reason there's going to be 72 units, and that is to abide by the New Jersey's affordable housing. So at the end of the day, there's a reason, and these affordable housings are going to go to people that desperately need housing. My question is, everyone keeps bringing up, why does it have to be 41 units? The affordable housing, that makes complete sense. We need to abide by those rules, otherwise our township will be taken to court, essentially. So what about this one has to be 41 units, which then makes us have to essentially destroy our open green space that we worked so hard to try and get funding for and to just have? And why do we have to do that? Is it just for profit? And then they profit, leave, and we never see them again, and the township's left with a mess.
I ask our planner to address the density issue on the property.
The number of units at 41 does comply with the density.
Okay, it complies with the density, but at the end of the day, it doesn't comply with the water management. We have to agree to that as a town, and if we agree to that, then you're doing a disservice to the residents that are clearly here for a reason. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing? Well, sir, I've called on you once before.
I was just going to answer.
Nope.
Just a comment about the lake.
Nope. Lady in the back, blonde hair. Straight back. Oh, two blonde hair. You both have blonde hair. In the light blue top.
I'm going to spell my name. First name is Carol with a K. Yeah.
K-A-R-O-L.
Correct. Last name is Kemke, K-E-M as in Mary, P as in Peter, K-E.
You swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, nothing but the truth, nothing else.
I do.
Address?
Hastings, no, I'm on Winchester, oh my God. I'm on Winchester Court.
Your house number, please.
5.
Thank you.
So I am an original owner, 2002, beat a couple of you by 2 years. I oppose this in the sense that I understand that you will pay or have the owners of these units pay through their HOA for the drain pipe and anything that happens. And that's probably good for the first year, maybe the second, but after that, I think we all know in the back of our minds, it's gonna come back on us. And as a property owner, I pay enough in taxes for my little postage-sized stamp yard, and I don't want any increase in taxes due to this. I also, like most people in here, agree with the drainage. I mean,
Please address the board.
sorry, I'm trying to address them too.
They know you're.
I want my back to them.
They can hear you.
They can hear you.
I also oppose the drainage, and the gentleman, whoever spoke about taking out the middle houses and using that as a drain, I think that's brilliant. If we have to have that development, that's the smart way to go. What?
Yep.
Oh. But I do have a question, because I'm a little unclear. Has this development been approved?
Yes.
Okay. I understand that. What happens if we don't approve, and who's going to, well, let me start with this. Who gets to approve, or who will approve the drain thing? Will that be you, or will it be the Township of Hainsport?
This board has before it the drainage proposal.
So this board, the JLUB, will approve it?
This board has before it the proposal, and
Okay,
we'll have
so
to
you
take-
get to do the approval or the
We'll take a
non-approval?
vote on it.
You take a vote on it with all of you members?
We'll take a vote on it.
And do you include us as residents?
No, you do not have a vote. The panel, this
So-
committee, this, as you want to maybe call it, committee or board,
Correct.
has the vote to approve or disapprove the proposal for the drainage that has been presented tonight. The easement issue will be for another day for Township Committee.
So by us saying, because I know you won't accept the petition, so I felt like I had to stand up, but by us coming up here and saying we do not approve this means what to the board members?
Means that individual board members will take that under advisement in deciding how to vote.
And that includes everyone at these tables?
No, it includes the board members, not our secretary, not our professionals.
So it includes you? Raise your hands if it includes you, so I know who you are. I mean, just for no other reason than I'm just curious.
It includes to make it simple for you, it includes the board members.
Okay.
No comments, please, while we're talking. You wouldn't talk over somebody else if you... It includes those members who, on the roll call this morning, or the first thing at the meeting, answered yes.
Okay.
All right?
So I ask all of you who will approve or disapprove to please listen to us as the residents of Hainsport, that I'm assuming most of the people, if not all in this room, are not in agreement with that drain or disturbing the piece of nature that we have. So that's it.
Thank you.
I'm done. You're welcome.
Single hand up in the back, please.
Hi, Paula Euland. Paula-Uhland. L-A-N-D.
You swear or affirm testimony you give will be the truth, the truth, nothing but the truth, nothing but the truth.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm Paula Euland. I live in Creek Woods. I've been there for 30 years, and I really love the town, the neighborhood. I appreciate what you all are doing tonight and every night that you do this. I live very close to a very similar outfall. And I'm going to give you my opinion as a resident for 30 years. I'm on the Hainsport Township Environmental Commission for 17 years. I'm a certified Rutgers Master Gardener. I'm a certified Rutgers Environmental Steward. I'm a certified Rutgers Stormwater Management. So I come here with a love for the township and an appreciation for what you all do. I have a very similar outfall very close to where I live, and it's in the Beacon Hill development. It's at the end of Longfellow, and it's a very steep drop from street level down to the creek, and there's a tremendous erosion problem. And I want to make you all aware of that, because that can be remediated. And in this situation, if you all approve this plan tonight, I really want to ask you to, when you are seeding it, planting the soil that's going to go over the pipe, can you please use native grasses, native shrubs, native trees? They will work better in that environment, which is absolutely beautiful. And I just want to ask you to use native plants going forward. They will work better. They will blend into the environment easier, and as they get big, our birds and animals will be able to feed there, live there. So I'm asking, can we please do a good job if this plan is approved and really pay attention to the materials that are used to cover the pipe and make it work better?
Thank you for your comments. The point that I'll make is that a previous committee member for the Environmental Commission, are you presently on the commission?
Yes.
Or you're presently on the commission?
No, I'm on the commission.
Right, you're presently on the commission.
Yes, I thought you were saying
So
president.
you were a person who was partly responsible for the letter we received earlier
Yes.
from the commission? Okay. So you heard the comments about using native grasses, shrubs, and the soil conservation issues that were discussed?
Yes.
Okay. So,
All right, thank you for your time.
thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Paula? Hi. It's a trifecta here. I love it. As the MS4 coordinator for Hainesport Township, I do have a question about the outfall, the pipe erosion issue at the end of Longfellow. Is that a direct outfall? Like, does the stormwater collect in the basins and then directly outfall out into so it's a direct source?
Yes.
It's not going into a basin, and then if there's a 100-year flood, which is only going to happen, then it's going to utilize that pipe. So it's a direct source.
run.
It's a straight run. Okay.
And the erosion is pretty serious.
Sure. I mean, it's constant stormwater runoff that's flowing into that. So the soil erosion absolutely is going to happen. Is there anybody checking that out besides the township? Like, is there an HOA in your community
No.
or? Okay.
It is township property. It's in the 10 acres that township owns.
Yes.
So, no, not to my knowledge.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Any other comments?
Kathleen Tidwell, Tidwell.
Do it again.
Tidwell. Yep,
With K or a C?
one side. With a K. I live on, oh,
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Address?
What's your address?
Address?
24 Edgewater, since 2001. Yes, I'm old.
We are both Catholic.
We're all old.
We're all old.
I'm worried, and I do oppose this, in that I appreciate what Kathy said, but I do believe in the rush to build the community. Not a lot was put into the fact that it is very difficult to stabilize that area. The soil, you even commented that it was a sand pit, et cetera.
What your development was.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of that area. So it's a concern if there is a problem. And then what follows also is the cost. And I know that Alex spoke about the flood when the dams broke back in 2004, I believe.
It's about 7 or 8.
Yeah. So we do incur rising HOA costs, and we also incur cost of flood insurance. So, I mean, there are costs, and beyond the environmental and beyond the concern of what happens if there is a problem. And so I just wanted to go on record as saying it's a beautiful community. You know, I've totally enjoyed living there, and it's disheartening to think what could happen, and that's my concern.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
All right, anyone else? All right, seeing no other hands, we're going to go online.
One more.
One more.
Got one more.
Oh, it's going to go on all night.
I know.
Slow to raise your hand, but that's all right.
Because I'm very nervous, but I want to get this out.
Okay, give us your name.
Sandra, Sandra Monahan, Monaghan, 3 Wharton Place.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give is the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do. I live at 3 Wharton Place. We purchased the house in 2003, so I'm one of the original owners, like most of the people here. I back up right to the area where they're proposing the development. I'm opposing the drain runoff into the Rancocas Creek. Also, there's a lot of wild animals, species that I don't know which ones may be endangered, but there are a lot of animals that do come into our property that I've seen over the last 22 years. But I do want to go on to record saying that I do oppose this, and I don't know how many of you live in Creekview itself. I know you're Hainsport residents, but it's a beautiful development, and take a walk through it, take a look at the area, and think about it, even though you may not be living in that development, how many people you are affecting, and that's all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to the online people, and if there's anyone online, if you would unmute your computer, and we'll be able to recognize you that way and take your question, and then we'll try to communicate that way.
I see no one unmuting their microphones.
All right, again, people online, if you want to participate, you have to unmute. If you don't unmute, we will move on. Nobody unmuted? All right. So I'm going to close the public session. Mr. Franks, I'm going to give you a brief period of time to respond to any of the points made. No need to be repetitious. We did hear your initial presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one brief discussion for the board with regard to the outfall structure. Jack?
The outfall structure seems to be on everybody's mind.
Yeah. So, Jack, can you bring up, what are we up to for applicants' exhibits now?
You were just A, that's all.
So we're at A4, I think, because I marked the...
3, 4,
Yeah, we're at A4, okay.
Yeah.
So, we marked this as A4. Jack, can you tell us what this drawing is?
Yeah, I prepared this plan. It's a profile view of the pipe from our stormwater basin, behind the backs of the houses, and across the township lands.
Yeah, why don't you move, Mr. Frank, move that to the other easel, just, I know that blocks the one, but it's just a little easier to see.
And this is an exaggerated scale. It's 1 inch equals 50 foot horizontal, 1 inch equals 5 foot vertical. As a result, it is an exaggerated thing. We do that because it's for clarity.
So help me understand the exhibit. Where's the creek?
The creek is here.
All right, where's the pipe?
This is the pipe in red, and the dotted green line on top is the existing elevation of the lands, of the dirt, of the trees. And it's, what it indicates is we're coming down at a 0.5% slope on the pipe. When we get near the creek, we are installing a drop manhole so that the water comes in high, drops down to the bottom, and then it is near the level of the Rancocas Creek, and it goes out. Why we do that is to reduce the velocities when it exits the pipe. Had I gone from this point right down into that stream, the water would be roaring out that pipe, which would lead to the erosive possibilities. So as a result of that drop manhole, it reduces the velocity considerably so that we are able to mitigate the area between the pipe and the creek, reinforce it, stabilize it, and it won't erode out. It will be inspected periodically as part of our maintenance schedule.
Jack, so just to summarize, does using that vertical drop mean that you can greatly reduce the area at the bottom of the outflow that's vulnerable to erosion?
Well, it reduces the erosive possibility. Were I to go directly down, it would be wiped out in a matter of a day. Of a couple storm events, it would be gone. By doing this, and this is very standard practice, it reduces the velocity going out.
So let's talk a little bit about what's flowing through that pipe. You and I had a conversation this afternoon about when we reach the 100-year storm, right? Is there going to be water flowing in this pipe? And this is not the 100-year storm that is in the regulations today, right? This is the 100-year storm.
Climate adjusted.
Climate adjusted, which is 30+%.
Approximately 30% larger than current.
Okay, so when we're getting that climate adjusted 100-year storm, how much water is going into that pipe?
I believe it was 1.8 CFS.
What's CFS?
Cubic feet per second.
Okay.
Versus, just to give the board an idea, the projected 100-year flow into the basin is roughly 45 CFS. So it's 1.8 out, 45 in, which is the reason we have to have a reservoir area, so we can store it, let the water out slowly.
That pipe's 18 inches in diameter?
It's an 18-inch pipe.
And if it were running chock full, how much water could it carry?
It could easily carry 12 CFS just by gravity.
Okay, so 6 times more. So
Yes.
we're only filling the pipe 1/6 full in a 100-year storm. And when we have storms that are less than a 100-year storm, you expect this pipe to flow?
No, because we are restricted from how much we can release based upon existing ground coverages. It's a A classification soil, which means it perks. It has high permeability. Therefore, little water runs off in the natural state. We have to calculate that rate, and then we are only permitted to discharge a percentage of that. So because it is so sandy, a 10-year storm event, we are basically not releasing anything because the existing ground isn't releasing anything.
Thank you.
Mr. Frank, it probably has been said multiple times before, but if approved, and if the easement is also granted by the town, whose responsibility will it be to maintain the outfall pipe and this elbow arrangement that you
It
just
will be the
described?
responsibility of the homeowners association.
All right.
And I think it's really important to understand what the flows will be and won't be, and what the burdens on that pipe will be and won't be. And that's why I brought Jack back up to explain that to the board. This is, and to Ms. Costco's point about the pipe that was discussed by one of the homeowners, this isn't that pipe. This isn't a pipe that has a constant heavy flow that gets put through it when there's a big storm event. This is a pipe that occasionally gets some flow and not much.
So I'll ask a question that may be on the minds of some people, maybe not, but, Mr. Gravel, when what I'll call the elbow arrangement, but, it's essentially a manhole through which the water drops and then emerges out through another elbow, correct?
That is correct.
And is that 18 inches at the bottom?
No, it'll be 4 foot in diameter at the bottom, minimum. We may go slightly larger depending upon the manufacturing requirements.
Why is that? If the pipe is 18 inches, why is the ultimate outfall 4 feet?
That is, well, that's the diameter.
Diameter, I understand.
Of the structure. The pipe coming out will also be 18 inch.
Okay.
The reason it is 4 foot is mainly for man access. There'll be a ladder all the way down there, rungs where you can get down there and actually maintain it if necessary. It'll be easier to come in from the other way to maintain it.
All right, and the ultimate outfall, how high is that off the creek in a normal high tide event?
Well, it'll be about 2 foot higher than the mean high water line as dictated by NJDEP. They told me what they wanted, so that's how I designed it.
Will that outflow possibly be submerged in extreme flood tide or flood situations?
It could possibly, I did not review what the flood elevation is out there, but it could potentially be underwater during a 100-year storm event, say.
And Mr. Meltz, maybe you can address that, since it's more up your alley, so to speak.
Well, yeah, but I don't want to speculate, Mr. Chairman.
And I don't want you to.
You know, I mean, FEMA, that's very likely FEMA map waterway. You know, the 100 floods probably in the realm of 7 feet above sea level, somewhere in that realm. But again, that's a ballpark. You can't tell you the exact.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Frank, anything else?
Yeah, I just want to remind the board what we're here for and what we're not here for in closing. We're here because we obtained from this board preliminary and final major subdivision approval to build this development. And then there was litigation from Creekview Homeowners Association, who objected to the use of an easement for stormwater for the overflow that we've been talking about today that would go onto the Creekview property into the public right-of-way and then into the stormwater conveyance system. They objected to that, and the result of that lawsuit was not a decision by the court, but a settlement agreement that was reached between all the parties. It included this board, it included the township, it included Creekview Homeowners Association, my client, as well as the Diamandis Family Children's Trust, which is the owner of the property. And what we're here today to do is to implement that agreement, implement what got rid of that litigation. And we're doing a very narrow thing. We're asking the board to hear and determine that, as testified by our experts, that we comply with the stormwater management ordinances of the township, and that we comply with the NJDEP regulations for waterfront development pursuant to the permit that they have granted to us. There are really no other changes to this plan. And so the limited scope of an approval tonight would be to approve an amendment that would incorporate those stormwater management measures. Ultimately, the particularities of who will be responsible and how it will be paid for and how it will be secured and will be the subject of agreement between the municipality and my client, hopefully. But that's not really what's before the board this evening. This is a site plan application. Do we or don't we comply with your ordinances in that regard? You know, we've agreed to comply with the plan detail and design comments of your professionals. We've also made additional agreements on the record with regard to native species for plant materials and the like. We're subject to other outside agency approvals like soil conservation. So with that, I'd ask that you approve this request.
Thank you. I'm going to ask if any members of the board have any questions of Mr. Frank before we... I'm going to get to professionals. Give me a chance.
Did I hear correctly that you said the Creekview Homeowners Association agreed to your proposal?
Yeah.
And the settlements?
Yeah, they did. So, yeah.
Another question.
I'm sorry.
No. Public comment is closed. I'm sorry.
I have one.
Public comment is closed. I'm sorry. But we have another board member with a question.
You guys keep talking about this 30-year flood, so I just want to 100-year flood.
I just want to make sure that I understand this. So on a day-by-day, week-by-week, monthly basis, water will not be flowing through that pipe?
That is correct.
This is in the event that we have this 100-year flood, then this is going to take
Or
care of
bigger.
the overflow.
Or bigger. And you've
Or
also
bigger.
heard testimony
And
that's
it will
really
be able to do
over-designed,
that.
right? That it has significant, both the basin and the pipe have very significant additional capacity in excess of the necessity for the 100-year.
I'm just sorry to see what's going to happen to Lakeside if we have a 100-year flood. I think there's going to be trouble there. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to take you all the way back to the beginning. I have to ask you again to summarize what were the deciding factors in not having all of it be contained within that specific?
So there are really two reasons. The first reason, and this is something that both engineers testified to, is that it's just not good engineering practice to just do 100% infiltration and not have a place for bigger storms than we anticipated to go. That's just not good practice. Not what civil engineers do. It's not how these things are typically designed. In addition to that, the NJDEP also is testified to by both engineers. The NJDEP regulations and their best management practices, which is the design guide, do not call for 100% on-site infiltration. You know, streams need water, right? That's one of the recognitions that's come about over the years. We used to have a higher infiltration standard than we have today, and a lower flow requirement. As the DEP regulations have evolved, they have actually reduced the amount of infiltration that you're allowed to do under their standards. So both from a practical safety and design perspective, we need to have an outlet. It's not appropriate to not have a physical outlet. The natural flow of the water was historically down the hill into Creekview. And we're not allowed to do that under the settlement agreement with Creekview. So what's specifically contemplated there is this alternative, and that's what we're doing.
Any other board questions?
Yeah, that picture there, will that all be underground?
Yes.
So you won't see anything other than the pipe that's underwater, if you have to go and
Well,
clean it?
the pipe won't, I think Jack testified that it won't actually be out of, underwater, it'll be just a little bit above the mean high water. Yeah, but everything that's in red there, in the vertical line.
So the edge of that would be ground versus concrete?
The vertical face?
Yeah, looking at it from the riverside. If you're standing on the other side of the river, what would that look like?
Let me ask Jack a minute. So, Jack, this exhibit E here that was presented by one of the objectors, and in it is a photograph of what appears to be, let's come on up to the mic, what appears to be an outfall structure. Is that
something like what you're going to have there?
It'll be similar to that. This is a much bigger pipe.
Okay.
So the concrete structure itself will be reduced proportionally, but it will be a concrete structure with the wing walls. It'll be smaller, as I said, and there will be all the riprap, just like they're showing here. The only thing I have, they have a wall up on top of the concrete. I'm showing a fence because I don't want someone walking off the edge of this thing unexpectedly. You know, I want them to.
And then the vertical face going up is now the cliff face. That's going to be restabilized with soil and vegetation?
That'll be the same as it is once we restore it, of course. I mean, certainly there's restoration efforts involved here, but it's our intention to bring it back to similar to how it is out there. And to be quite honest, from the other side of the Rancocas, it's only going to be this wide perhaps, and once we get the vegetation growing, it isn't going to stick out like a sore thumb.
But my point is that is not going to be a concrete wall. It's going to be, that elbow is going to be 5 feet back, down, and then across.
Oh, yeah.
Your indication.
Well, the manhole itself will be underground. You won't be able to see that at all.
Okay.
Thank you,
Chairman, if I may, as a follow-up to that, my question, I think the timing is appropriate.
Your timing is usually appropriate.
For the head wall, I think it may be appropriate, and we've done this on other park projects. There are opaque penetrating stains, and if that was not a white Portland cement, but there was a topical stain applied, that can make it sort of disappear into the landscape and into that woodland. So somebody kayaking on the creek,
Sure.
it would help that disappear.
Super easy, no problem. We'll most certainly do it. It could either be a condition of your site plan approval or a part of what we agree with the governing body. I have no issue with that.
All right, so the issue is that the applicant would comply with recommendations of the planner
To use a colored cement
to disguise the head wall
yeah,
with,
To use the stain to
sure.
to de-emphasize the presence, to make it sort of an earth tone, so it's less visually intrusive.
Yeah.
right, subject to planner's approval.
Absolutely, not an issue.
I have another question. In terms of what gets disturbed in digging for this pipe and what vegetation or trees get removed, et cetera, I mean, we've heard stories of, well, they go ahead and do it, and then they say, whoops, sorry, and then too late, the trees have already been knocked down. How assured are we that there's going to be close monitoring of exactly what area and what needs to be replaced and what can be
So pre-disturbance staking
Yes.
and marking?
And I believe that was a condition, we can reiterate that in this.
Yep.
That the clearing limits will be staked in the field and approved by our office and the engineer's office.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then secondarily, the tree protection fencing will be installed and approved prior to any clearing.
Right, because it's not good enough just to avoid the bases, the trunk of the tree, right? The tree has a root ball in it.
Right.
Canopy, so we need to stay out of that if we're going to preserve a tree, if it's going to be a meaningful preservation. So, yeah, so you're right, and we'll certainly comply with all that.
And you will have to comply with our tree ordinance.
Yeah.
That we received a lot of input from the Environmental Commission and residents that was amended accordingly. But you're going to have to abide by 2024-9, correct?
Yes.
Which is our tree ordinance?
And you have a significant replacement obligation in that as well. Yep.
Yeah.
And we're certainly aware of that.
So ultimately, what if there's no agreement? What if we think that it doesn't, it's not adequate? If we don't want that tree down and the pipe can't go another way, then where do we go from there?
Well, then we're dead in the water.
My point exactly.
Right. But that's the risk we're taking here.
From my perspective, who makes that final decision? Is that, we're leaving that up to Scott or? Okay.
So here's the way I think that works. Let's say that we go out in the field and we mark the trees that must stay. We mark the limits of disturbance, where machinery is allowed to go and where it's not allowed to go. Not just what's allowed to rip up, but where it's allowed to go, right? We mark that. And we have a disagreement with Scott. We reach impasse with Scott. We're going to have to come back either to the governing body, if it's something that we're doing pursuant to our agreement with the governing body, or here, if it's a condition of your approval, and say, Mr. Taylor's being unreasonable. I'm a board attorney in other places too, right? So I get it, right?
It happens.
Okay, but that is our outlet.
Well, what consequences are there if you and Mr. Taylor don't agree and you say in the middle of the night, let's get this tree down anyway, and then it's, don't ask for forgiveness, don't ask for permission, just ask for forgiveness. I mean,
Mr. Frank's client would do that at his peril. Is that correct?
Mr. Frank wouldn't have a client, I mean, so, I think that we can't assume that we're going to violate the law out of the box or violate the rules. Hopefully, as a part of the financial agreements that we reach with the municipality, we can come to some sort of controlling theory that makes it economically unpalatable to engage in that sort of thing, but it's not something that we can really do here at the planning board. Yeah.
Because I do want to go on record saying that is a phenomenal area, and if in fact we do approve it, that I don't want it to be left up to, she said, like, folks, I'm sorry, all of a sudden, and everybody in here, our responsibility is to them, and all of a sudden now, we failed it.
Right.
Because somebody decided to pull faster, so to speak.
Yep, I get that. And so we're going to need to incorporate that into our contractual agreements with the governing body. And make sure that whoever it is that's involved in implementing the approval understands that there's a powerful reason not to do that.
So I also, just from the municipality's perspective, want to put out there that when we started making these improvements to the park, there will be vegetation clearing as a result of our park improvements. And it could be significantly more than this. It could be less. But we too will have an obligation that we have to follow from 2024-9. We're responsible for replacing any trees or vegetation that we remove, just as you will be as well. So while the can's somewhat being kicked down the road in terms of the actual easement agreement, it is going to be very clear that we're going to talk about what's going to be in the HOA documents, how it's going to mesh with and combine with our plan, our conceptual plan, and what we're trying to do with the park improvements. And I would think that the governing body and our professionals will work towards that in terms of incorporating this as part of the path system that we are going to be doing in our phase 1 and potentially phase 2 as well. But that is definitely going to be a priority, and that is something that's going to have to be incorporated. We've talked about it. This is going to be part of the actual trail system. So that's all I have to say.
Any other board member comments or questions? So we get that wrapped up. We're okay? Just to make sure that I haven't left anything that for the professionals have questions on? None. Marty, you're saying? You're okay?
I'd just like to reiterate to the board that it's unlikely that there's going to be much water in that pipe ever because of the infiltration in that basin. I've been in that situation where they have you can't hold water in the bottom. They had a hard time doing evaluation of the percolation of the sand there because it just goes away.
Because of the porosity of the sand. All right, and then no other questions from the board, and I'm going to ask council. We are asked to approve an amendment to the stormwater management component of this previously approved site plan. And so can you state for this board the question that they must answer?
Well, first thing is what you're not voting on. You're not deciding whether or not this pipe is allowed to go through the easement because that is strictly a township governing body issue. They will be the ones who decide that. And many of the comments you heard tonight should probably be addressed to the township committee when they make that decision. The applicant has certain vested rights because they have already received subdivision approval for the 31 lots.
41.
31 homes.
41.
I'm sorry, 41. And what you're voting on is whether or not this proposal is an acceptable engineering solution to the stormwater drainage. Where it goes is up to the township committee.
Okay. So is the board clear on the question posed? And if you are not, please say so and we can talk about clarification.
So are we allowed to put conditioned upon review of HOA documents and assurance that these provisions are in the HOA documents and properly filed, reviewed by not just the board members, but also the township committee and professionals? Can that be a condition of the approval?
You know, I'm not sure whether that's an appropriate condition of this approval.
It is. It's already in our report.
All right.
Mr. Frank's already agreed to provide the board professionals with that. And as part of the easement agreement with the township, I'm certain Mr. Gillespie will do that. So
Right.
we've already agreed
All right, so say it again in a simple two-sentence statement.
that the applicant agreed that the homeowner association documents, which will include easement language and stormwater management obligations, will be provided to the board professionals for review and approval.
And that's a condition of approval, as might be proposed in a motion.
Correct.
Okay. So if you make a motion, you would want to incorporate that condition without necessarily restating it, that Scott just outlined. And of course, we had other conditions that we discussed with Mr. Franks, such as, just by way of example, compliance, with the goal of complying with the,
Native species.
yes, those
Yes.
pieces.
Yes. So everything that we've agreed on the record should be incorporated into Mr. Kingsbury's resolution as conditions of approval.
Okay,
The color of the concrete, all of those things that we agreed.
exactly. All right, I think we're at the point where I'm going to call for a motion.
I have one more question. I have one more question. This might be,
No question is too late.
I disagree with that. Is this motion going to be conditioned upon the township committee's approval of the easement?
No.
Okay.
Yes, that's true whether it's stated that way or not.
Right, it's a functional necessity, right? Whether you say it or not, we don't know where we're going to find it.
Okay.
The Township Committee's decision on the easement is an independent decision based upon whatever evidence is presented before them, and it is not necessarily preordained by the vote here, if it is a vote to approve. If we could vote to approve and the township could find an issue with the easement.
Okay.
Correct?
Absolutely, because you're here deciding under the site plan and subdivision ordinances of the town. You're not making a plenary policy decision about whether that easement should be granted or not. You're making a decision about whether the engineering meets your site plan and subdivision standards. That's the complete scope of your decision.
That's right.
We've presented evidence from our engineers that it does. Your professionals agree that it does, and we've also agreed a lot of other conditions that help smooth out other issues around some of the concerns that are going to fully emerge at the Township Committee.
This is a question to approve or not approve the engineering and design of the stormwater management system, subject to the conditions that we have discussed at this hearing tonight.
Yes.
So may I have a motion?
I make that motion?
May I have a second?
I'll second it.
And your motion is to approve, subject to the conditions we talked about?
Yes, to approve the amendment to the stormwater component of the site plan as presented by the professionals.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion, and do we have a second?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, roll call.
Ms. Costello?
Yes.
Mr. Tricoci?
Yes.
Mrs. Torti?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
No, and I say no because I think it will, too much of the ground will be disturbed, too much for the native species and the native, like the native, like the birds and those kind of creatures.
You have environmental concerns, in other words?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes.
Mrs. Baggio?
Can I say a reluctant yes? I mean, I have the same concerns that Trish has, I'm just concerned about the disturbance, not so much what, it doesn't sound like we're going to have a lot of water going into the Rancocas, but just the disturbance of the ground to put that pipe in concerns me.
But the vote was yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
And Mr. McKay?
no. Motion.
Is it appropriate to make comment as to why I made my vote now, or no?
I
Or
really
at a
think
later
your vote,
time?
I think your vote speaks for itself.
Okay.
But, you know, you're
I have
free to-
different reasons that most people would have on the board.
Yeah, I mean, First Amendment always exists, but
Yes.
right now, your vote speaks for itself.
Okay, but then I would like everybody to hear my public comments at the end, really.
All right, so I think the motion passes?
Yes.
Okay.
2 noes and 7 yeses.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your many courtesies. Good evening.
All right, going to continue with the agenda for tonight, and we will have a comment at the end. Would be
I know, but
appropriate.
everybody has left by then, so that's...
Well,
That's okay, that's all right.
Don't put me.
Way it goes.
they don't have
They'll
to.
get it on the record. Do you?
It'll still be on the record.
That's the only reason I said
I
yes.
know,
But I hate to see that property disturbed.
I know.
And the chicken, it's gonna
But
vote.
legally, they
I
must
should have followed my...
All right, we have minutes of meetings to deal with. April 3rd, 2024 minutes.
Motion now, file, that's been filed.
premium lots.
April 3, 2024 minutes.
I don't think that's...
Second, anybody? Second. Thank you.
They just-
All in favor?
Land.
Aye.
I can
Opposed?
understand that.
We have to run separately because everybody wasn't here for,
Yes, I'm going to do them separately, but I'm going to do a voice rather than a roll call. Is that okay, Paul?
well, I believe you should be doing it by...
Should be a roll call?
Yeah.
All right, let's do a roll call on April 3, 2024.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mrs. Forty?
Yes.
Mrs. Baggio?
Yes.
Ms. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Novarita? And Mr. McKay?
Yes. All right, May 1, 2024, motion?
Motion that we file the minutes.
Second?
Roll call?
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Costa?
Yes.
Ms. Forty?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes.
Mr. Chakotchi?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Novarita? And Mr. McKay?
Yes. July 2nd, 2024.
So
Motion?
moved. Second.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes.
Mrs. Forty?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Chakotchi?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Novarita?
Yes.
Mr. McKay?
Yes. All right, we have two,
One more.
July 11, 2024.
Yes.
So moved.
Second?
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Forty?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mrs. Baggio?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Ms. Costa? Yes, you were here for July 11th. Wait,
No, I wasn't.
No, it wasn't.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. Mr. Novarita? And Mr. McKay?
Yes. Resolution 2024-20, that's a front yard setback variance for a pylon sign on the dental office on Route 38.
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion to approve is drafted.
Yes.
There's a second.
Yes.
Vote, please.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes.
Mrs. Forty?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mrs. Baggio?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Novarita?
Yes.
Mr. McKay?
Yes. Resolution 2024-21, impervious cover for rear yard in-ground swimming pool. A motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I'm sorry, who mentioned that? I'm sorry. Mrs. Forty. Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mrs. Forty?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Gilmore?
Yes.
Mrs. Baggio?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Novarita? Mr. McKay?
Yes. Correspondence, if no one has a particular interest in any, may I have a motion to receive and file?
Second?
Motion.
You can do
A
it.
motion, all right, everything.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? No. None? All right, professional comments, we've heard a lot today, but anything else that we can talk about?
I'm all out of words.
That's amazing.
Scott, I need to talk to you for 2 minutes afterwards on a totally different matter. All right, Marty, you have nothing? Okay. Thank you for your help tonight, by the way, on dealing with these questions. They're very helpful. Any board comments?
Not now, thanks.
To be on the record, Karen, yeah.
I didn't mean to shut you off, Karen, I just...
Okay. Well, I'm new to the game, so I'm not quite sure how everything goes. So, but I just wanted people to know that for me, this isn't done. Like, this comes before the township committee. And I wrote down every comment that everybody made, and I appreciate the fact that they came to this meeting, and I know it makes them very, very nervous to come up and talk in front of everybody, and I appreciate that. So for me, I'm leaving with a lot of questions that I know that I'm going to have a chance to ask at the township meeting and hear what you have to say. Ask you guys if I have any questions. Where a lot of the other board members here do not have that opportunity. So for me, it was very comfortable to say, I respect everything that has been done in the last few years, because I was not a part of that. I respect all the work that all of you have done and your decisions that you made. So I'm going along with that. And I think that it's very important that you guys made a settlement, an agreement, that this is what we were going to do. And I respect that as well. So going forward, I just want to say, I just wanted to tell the people that I was hearing everything that they had to say. And there are a lot of questions that I want to make sure are addressed for them in the future. That's all.
Thank you. All right, hardly anyone left in the public, but there are a few. So any public comments? Online, any public comments?
There are 3 people, but they're not unmuting, so.
Okay, hearing no public comments.
Okay. I just want to thank the board again for allowing me as zoning officer to help these homeowners out. Due to the fact is that I'm starting to see a lot of our aging community having to move in with their parents or vice versa. And the fact that this homeowner took some of my guidance as to how to design this so that they had a better chance of getting it approved. I just want to thank you all for, again, allowing me to help these residents.
Well, you do a public service, I think personally, by doing that. So I, as one member of the board, I thank you for that.
So we're all going to be there one day, probably.
I'm already there, honey. Speak for yourself.
I've been there.
All right. If there's anything else on the board's mind?
I just want to say that I think what I hear from the residents is a lot of concerns about the tree clearing and preserving a lot of the trees out there. And I want to ensure everyone that we're going to work very diligently with them and Scott, should this get approved, to do what we can to preserve as many trees as possible. Because I do think that at this point, that is the overarching issue. We've established that there's not going to be a lot of stormwater runoff with that easement pipe. So it sounds to me like the clearing of the trees and preserving some of the wildlife is a will most likely be a priority. And I do want to commit to working towards doing what we can to preserve those trees and really truly incorporating what is done here with the park plan and the concept plan, so that, because that park is a benefit to the entire community, not just the 41 future citizens, the county and the state. We have people coming from all over the nation, and I've seen the data on it, to our park. So, should it move forward, that commitment is absolutely on the table from administration.
Well said.
And I assume one other comment too is, obviously, based off of what Karen was saying, that we're relying on them to, if this pipeline doesn't go to where it needs to go,
So it's not to have to worry about disturbing some of the native plants.
then no is an okay answer. That we're giving you guys the ball so that you can make your right decisions.
As much as a pipe as we can barely
I
down
know that's a
the
bad
trail.
word, but,
Regardless of whether it has benzene or
Not
told yet. And that's why I put my trust in you.
And
So, and I think you guys did a good job.
Where is it that
And we're
park?
leaving it up to the committee, you know, the ball's in your court.
A lot of, okay.
And that's a lot of reason why I voted yes, because I love that area back there. You know, I'm the guy that, the weirdo that walks around in stuff, areas like that.
Well,
You're not allowed.
to be fair,
I ride my bike.
yeah, to be fair, you are one of 23,000 weirdos that have visited that park in the past year, and one of 46,000 visits
Right.
to that park this year. And that is actual scientific data that is extrapolated
Good.
by,
See, nobody knows that. The common homeowner doesn't know that.
yeah.
You know, and it's good that that information gets to us, because, like I said, I go back there, I'm there a lot, you know, constantly ride my bike back there, and I have friends that I work with in Mount Laurel that go canoeing back there.
We see you on our trail cams. Don't worry.
We've been running into each other a lot.
off when I show up.
Sure.
Is that how you do the count?
Camera, yeah,
We have cameras out there,
yeah.
and I'm very happy to report that out.
Have to start ready to go back.
Yeah, the public should know that.
Yeah, we have signs. Doesn't stop some people, but then they find out.
Right. All right. All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you all. So it was
All right.
a stressful hearing, but a good one.
I know they all look pretty upset.
I'm happy folks.
Paula.
I'd like to run these 25 years ago.
But